money all day. All I do is work, all I do is get paid, yeah. Oh man, we get money all day. All I do is work, all I do is get paid, yeah. All I do is work, all I do is work. All I do is work, all I do is get paid, yeah. All I do is work, all I do is work. All I do is work, all I do is let me work. Somebody call 911. My mind no ones and I'm undone. Try to hide but it's not better run from. Bye bye little guy now, run. It's my time, I'm alive and I'm young, and I'm in the prime and I'm one, better get a watcher when I get a feeling like I'm about to hit him with a shot from a stun gun. Ain't nobody get him on a different kind of level. I'll be on it like I thought it would be. Ain't nobody ready for it. Better get him out. I'm about to make it harder than a pot of lava on the one time. Call it what you want, man. I'm about to see the only one who's winning. And I gotta be a little bit offended by the way you trying to talk to me. I'm about to come and check and ask what you really want, son. Y'all don't get it, neither do I, look, I'll admit it. Y'all are trying to take island visits. I'ma run my own island business. It don't exist, I'll invent it. Man, I'm about to be childish with it. Money about to be piling up there so high we might see a pilot hit it. Bang, you gon' remember my name. I got the infinite aim, bringing the infinite pain. Working to get to the fame, then I'ma dip in a similar vein. Whipping the whip when I'm switching the lane. Admitting I'm gifted is simply insane. Man, let me what? Oh man, we get money all day. All I do is work, all I do is get paid, yeah. Oh man, we get money all day. All I do is work, all I do is get paid, yeah. All I do is work, all I do is work. All I do is work, all I do is get paid, yeah. All I do is work, all I do is work. All I do is work, all I do is let me work. Yeah, all I do is work, all I do is work. Keep it on the loud like I'm moving work. All this money crazy, too absurd. I'ma do the money dance, you get served. Lambo or Bugatti, which do you prefer? You standing there in silence, you should use your words. Look, actions speak louder than what you have heard. We bout that action, so you know we bout to do it. Word. My, what a business. Money crazy, so I know just what it's like to be senseless. They say that I can't be crap. Somebody find me a dentist. I'm about to buy up your time. So soon you might be evicted. I'm saying, man, oh man, we get money all day. I can't hear you talking, I don't care what y'all say. Out of getting nothing, and it's what you call pay. You think that you working, man, that's what they all say. Let me work.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really getting to it day and night. I'm really in the game, I live that life. Fake them left and then I take them right. I ain't going out without a fight. I put on a show under the lights. Love it when they say my name on the mic. Highlight play, make them wanna show it twice. Highlight play, make them wanna show it twice. I'm the coldest, get it done in freezing rain. When I get in my zone, I can feel it in my veins. I go tunnel vision, ain't nobody that can stop me. I'm legendary, they just want the jersey on my body. Put up the numbers, people trying to say they love me. Work out every summer, cause the winter gon' get ugly. Feel like the world against me got me going even harder. Take off like a rocket, I'm a sniper like I'm hearted.
When I go beast, how you gonna stop it? When I see the blitz, I just call an option. I'ma take my time, never leave a pocket. Man, it's not nice, so don't even try it. When I go beast, how you gonna stop it? When I see the blitz, I just call an option. I'ma take my time, never leave a pocket. Man, it's not nice, so don't even try it.
I'm really getting to it day and night. I'm really in the game, I live that life. Fake them left and then I take them right. I ain't going out without a fight. I put on a show under the lights. Love it when they say my name on the mic. Highlight play, make them wanna show it twice. Highlight play, make them wanna show it twice.
Boy, don't lie, do or die, it's my time. 14 inches, put it all on the line. I'm a big boss, yeah, I do it, I decide. I really run this, you just running out of time. I'm pushing a rock, when I dish it, it's a dime. But it's a decline, but I'm still in my prime. All this hard work, only right that I shine. All I know is grind, put in over time. When I go beast, how you gonna stop it? When I see the blitz, I just call an option. I'ma take my time, never leave a pocket. Man, it's not nice, so don't even try it. When I go beast, how you gonna stop it? When I see the blitz, I just call an option. I'ma take my time, never leave a pocket. Man, it's not nice, so don't even try it.
I'm really getting to it day and night. I'm really in the game, I live that life. Fake them left and then I take them right. I ain't going out without a fight. I put on a show under the lights. Love it when they say my name on the mic. Highlight play, make them wanna show it twice. Highlight play, make them wanna show it twice.
Too clean, interior crispy cream. Roll around with the team, better get with the regime. I don't do no pretending, take you to new dimensions. Shawty all in my mentions, shawty won't give me inches. With a bossy baby, I'll get you frosty baby. Don't care what it costs me baby, I'm feeling flossy lately. I got the rock, I got the rock, I got the sauce, I got that drip, can't f with no op. Drinking my cup, pour some rock, stay getting lit, yeah till I drop. 4 a.m. and I can't.
Matter of fact, we creeping, now we sneaking. Enemy highs, we be seeking. Lurking through waters and bushes, oh man. Cool guys, we deepin'. All of we die, one at a time. Those are the facts, we don't throw dice. Ready to fire, ready or not, we letting it grind.
There's nothing you can do. RNG are your nightmare.
Set it off like this, set it off like, set it off like this. Burn it up,
Welcome back to MSI 2022 in Busan, South Korea. 3 teams remain in the battle for regional glory, and today T1 and G2 Esports are looking to earn a shot at reigning champions RNG in tomorrow's final. Possibly the best entrance we've had to date here for any team as they make their way into the arena. This is a rematch of the classic 2019 matchup, and the LCK Titans finally have their chance for revenge in a best-of-5. I am Dash, joined by Emily Rand and Dagda. to kick things off here today. As we said, only 3 teams remain. 2 best-of-5s stand between us and crowning the best team in the world to date. How y'all feeling?
I'm so excited.
Yeah, you ready?
I'm so hyped. I'm so ready.
Well, you're probably feeling pretty good. You've already got 1 team that you cast on a somewhat regular basis into the finals. A second team that you also represent as a shot
I love the way
through.
I came out today and like the stylist backstage insisted I wear the LEC logo. It's like, I'm completely not biased here today, you know?
I love it. Quick refresher on the bracket, the way things shook out yesterday. Royal Never Give Up accomplished a 3-0 sweep over Evil Geniuses to book their ticket into the finals and that shot at defending their title.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at RNG, they played exactly as expected, right? Like, their understanding of the way that they can react to, even when EG looked like they were in winning positions, RNG still seemed to have a much better understanding and control over the map. I also really like their responses in draft. Every time that EG tried to kind of throw a curveball at them, they always had an answer. And I mean, it was just exactly what I expected from what I've seen of them.
Yeah, and I think it was really interesting to see things like the Lysandra come out from Xiaohu. It's something that we haven't seen a huge amount domestically or even over the course of his career, right? But having that pick come out, kind of him being the more engaged setup, and also just how well he was able to play around the fog of war, like as Emily was pointing out, like spraying through side lanes, then dipping into the fog of war and just finding these quick picks. It was super fun to see how they were able to bring these games back, especially against an EG that looks so good.
Yeah, very creative angles on a number of the engages. You mentioned Lysandra, got to call it the Braum as well. That's one of those responses to the MF curveball that was thrown. A 3-0, yes, dominant scoreline, but I think at the same time we also have to recognize, especially those last 2 games, at times the closeness of the series and the opportunities that EG had here on the international stage.
I really love this EG team so much, honestly, because every time I watch them go through kind of a best of journey, they improve with every series, right? So like, even though obviously this series scoreline was definitely not what they would have been hoping for, I think we saw a lot of really good looks from EG. Obviously JoJo had like some highlight moments, and then I think honestly the biggest discrepancy is that RNG just had a much better understanding of the map, a much better understanding of set plays.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how they have improved over the course of time, like what they can do when they actually sit down and kind of review those VODs, right? Because it feels like, as you say, Jojo Pyun, I think him kind of stepping up over the course of the whole tournament, especially when you look at groups, kind of having that, his troubles against Caps and G2, right? But you saw him kind of take those learnings and then grow from that, having those moments where he had the big pop-off performance in side lanes, and then as well as the team kind of went on, like taking team fights against RNG is not an easy task, and they look great.
Yeah, and as I think it was you who said it on desk yesterday, but you're like, if I'm EG, I'm actually looking at RNG in the VODs, right? Because I think a lot of the things that EG want to do and want to set up, RNG just do so much better. So I hope that they can really take it as a learning experience to go into the LCS Summer Split, because I can't wait to see them back.
Yeah, obviously always things you can learn from your own play, but just as easily looking at the team that beat you and what they did that much better is another great learning tool. Thoughts on RNG, though, as they book their ticket into that final to defend their crown as MSI champions. Is this the team to beat, or are we already kind of comfortable calling them the favorites regardless of what happens today?
I think they're the team to beat. I think, though, and we've been talking about this, we've been talking about it with Lyric, they're exactly the team we expected to see. I've not seen anything super shocking about RNG. They've played at this tournament exactly like what we saw from them in season. And that means that they haven't had the same like super highs and super lows a lot of other teams have had, which I think has been good for them.
Yeah, I mean, look, as the LPL guy, I'd love to come in and go, yeah, they're great, they're wonderful, smooth sailing. But I mean, look, it's the LPL representative, right? At the end of the day, you can see where the issues lie in the early game, how they can be exploited. And I think it's just a matter of time until teams kind of figure out how to go against that. But it's a case of whether you can match up in the mid game. Because like I said yesterday in the desk, it feels like you're an Elden Ring boss, right? You can get through phase 1, but how do you do in phase 2?
Yeah, admittedly, I get a little frustrated at Lyric's lack of confidence in this squad.
Oh, yeah, he was like shaking yesterday when RNG were winning.
Yeah. Get behind your boys. All right, well, that was yesterday's series. Today, we're gearing up for our second semifinal. It's G2 Esports versus T1. Now, Caps shared his thoughts coming into the knockouts just yesterday.
So the Rumble stage has been quite the roller coaster. I think the team atmosphere right now is a bit complicated. The first day felt amazing, and the second day felt also really good, while the last 2 days have been kind of a disaster. I mean, everyone is trying their hardest to keep a light mood, but it can be difficult when you're going through a lot of losses at important games. Everyone is upset with their own performance, but I'm sure we'll be able to reset for tomorrow. Winning MSI would mean a lot to me, not only because it proves that Europe is a strong region, but also because when you go through all these like hardships and a bunch of losses or a bunch of wins, to finally come out with a decisive win in the end and actually win the tournament, that is such an important feeling, and it means so much. And it kind of proves that regardless of what you go through in life, you can always come out on top.
Despite being semi-finalists at Worlds, T1 had a tumultuous 2021. From constant roster changes to the coaching staff leaving in the middle of the split in summer, it was largely a year of iteration and adaptation for T1, only really settling on a roster when they made their way to Worlds. The team in 2021 was largely the same as what you see now, but without the polish, without Zeus for most of the time, and without a split under their belt, playing with their one chosen roster. You may see the logo of T1 and Faker in the mid lane and feel nostalgic for the SKT days, but this is a very different team to the champions of the past.
G2, on the other hand, in 2021 had the strongest roster EU had ever seen on paper. In reality, it was mediocre at best, and for fan expectations, it was an absolute disappointment. So in 2022, G2 rebuilt, bringing in an all-new coaching staff, a new top laner, and Schalke's Broken Blade. And for the first time in a long time, they invested in young talent, Flakked and Targamas.
In contrast to G2, T1 made no changes to their roster at all coming into 2022, outside of moving Zeus from sub to starter. And while it's well known that T1 went undefeated leading up to MSI, what's been a little lost was the fact that the LCK is a best-of-3 region. And while they only dropped a single game in their playoff run against Gen G, during the season it was common to see T1 down a game against almost any team in the LCK. They lost games to Fred at Brion, Harmwell Life, Live Sandbox, Nongshim Red Force, all the teams who failed to make playoffs. But ultimately, T1 claimed victory. This is the difference between the T1s and SKTs of the past and the T1 we see today. They're not scared of taking risks. They will flip Barons, as you rightly know. They will take the 50-50 engage, and they will do it with the foundation of years of immaculate macro experience from the most successful player League of Legends has ever seen.
Well, the LEC is a best-of-1 region, so G2 losing to bottom and top teams alike meant not so smooth sailing. They weren't immediate favorites. They had a ton of up and down games where the new players and new lineups just didn't seem to click. And while Jankos remained a rock for the team, the once unstoppable Caps wasn't even a top 3 mid laner in the league for most of the season. At first, it looked like playoffs would be a similar story. G2's first best-of-5 versus Fnatic saw countless creative draft strategies really fail to leave a mark. But then everything changed for G2. As they built up 3-0 after 3-0, and in the final weekend, Caps came alive, dominating Fnatic and Rogue in back-to-back clean sweeps. A 12-0 streak that would continue through MSI. Now, stage 1 was effortless for both G2 and T1, but in Rumble, G2 found the edge, and as their streak continued, G2 were, in the eyes of the audience, for 2 days at least, the best team in the world.
And during those 2 days, everyone was wondering what had happened to T1. I think we can all agree that Gumayusi had not played at the level we saw domestically, but Zeus stepped up where he faltered. Despite those 2 days, T1 dropped a total of 3 games, all against teams they also managed to beat. True to their LCK performance in 2022. Even if Gumayusi can't find his form, he still has the LCK Spring MVP carrier at his side, the LCK Finals MVP owner behind him, and alongside them, Faker and Zeus, the greatest player in the history of the sport and the best performing player at this tournament. This is why T1 is so scary. There's always another carry ready to take over.
Sadly for G2, there wasn't always another carry or another win, and while T1 found themselves after those 2 days of struggle, G2 were quickly lost. They lost 5 consecutive games to top and bottom teams alike. While they found themselves a brief moment of redemption versus EG and the LCS, you have to wonder as we head into this best-of-5, which version of G2 will we see today? And if Caps can once again take down Faker and the LCK. And additionally, because you're all really superstitious about monologues, I've also invited Dash up here to say something else. Dash, could you just say a few words?
Yeah, a few words.
Thanks. Technically, no longer a monologue. This was a dialogue. Yeah, we had it. No. You spoke alone.
Yeah, we just had a dialogue. These teams faced off in an epic duel in 2019, and the featured matchup is now, as it was then, Faker versus Caps, presented by Mercedes-Benz.
As a mid laner, it is inevitable to be compared to Faker. He is our great one, responsible for the greatest play in league history and carrying home no less than 3 world championships.
They will be the Season 3 World Champions!
first ever two-time world champions. First blood to baby Faker.
Being compared to Faker back then was the highest of compliments you could give a mid laner. His skill and work ethic seemed to make him untouchable.
He was like big inspiration. That's why I want to become good at League, because I saw him in like Season 3 Worlds. And playing against him now, 9 years later, is kind of crazy.
A rivalry between these two players, between these two teams, used to be unthinkable. Now the pride of EU is looking to step up once again. Caps may be in the running for the best right now, but no one is even close to taking away the title of the greatest ever.
G2 Esports eliminates SK Telecom.
Truly being built differently is when you recognize and respect your opponent. These two may have opposite personalities and even playstyles, but the respect and drive that fuels them to win is unrivaled.
This is it! The greatest team in the history of League of Legends, taken down by the greatest team Europe has ever produced!
In this featured matchup powered by Mercedes, will this be Faker's triumphant return? Can this legendary veteran show he is still a champion, or will Caps laugh all the way to the finals once again?
And how could our featured matchup be anyone other than Faker versus Caps?
I mean, it's such a storied matchup, right? Like, you look even from Caps, who's always beaten Faker in an international best-of-5. When you look at, like, historically for G2, they could never get the best of SKT until Caps joined the roster in 2019. And then you look at how close that, like, run in 2019 was between, like, Worlds and MSI, whereas back and forth over who could get control of this mid-lane matchup. And I actually had a quick look at, like, the goal difference of 15 between these two in that period. It was 19 goals at 15 was the difference between these two.
Whose favor?
In Faker's favor.
Okay, I was going to say, that is actually such a cool stat.
Yeah, it's so incredibly close between these two.
And I think when we look at how they play for their teams now, it's no other team plays around their mid laner like G2 plays around Caps, right? Like, if I'm looking at the way, what they want him to do, he is the primary carry, right? Where Faker is really phenomenal at knowing his roam timings, and he's going to affect their side lanes. In particular, he typically goes top side to join up with Owner for some top lane dives. And I think that is the main difference when you're looking at them on their teams now.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting to see even just the way that they interact with their junglers, right, as well. Because you look at the way Yanko sets up Caps for success, where it's either a case we're going to gank him, we're going to get a bunch of kills there, but even correcting him when he's in terrible matchups and making sure that he can get these advantages to then step up as the big team fight carry. Whereas, as Emily's already pointed out, with Faker, it's much more about him linking up with Owner, working off of roam timings, and making sure that he can go for these multi-man dives, typically towards that top side of the map.
And the statistics support it. In a minute, we'll see them up on broadcast, but the damage percent for Caps, 26.7%. That's highest at this event. Meanwhile, for Faker, 21.9%. And that's because he is spreading his influence to other T1 carries, in particular, Zeus on the top side. You can also see this reflected in their forward percentage. Just these two teams revolve around their mid laners, but in very different ways.
Yeah, Caps owning the head-to-head all time in this matchup, but importantly at this tournament, they stand 1-1, poised perfectly even going into the best of 5.
Yeah, but even when you look at like that 1-1, right, it's actually like heavily skewed in favor of Faker in those first 30 stages, right? Like, you're looking at over 1,000 goal difference in favor of Faker for both games in those initial matchups, and it was those late game team fights that really brought G2 back and Caps that success.
Now, with that, I got to jump back to your point about how G2 plays around Caps, how integral Caps is to the success and the identity of G2. And we see that play out right behind us in this graphic.
Oh, nice. They moved it. You can see the Corki behind there. Caps with the blade.
Faker, what's going on, bro?
Shared champions and then Caps is just wilding out here. I think it also points to something that we've seen as a G2 strength at times, which is their draft creativity. They came into this tournament, they had the best meta read. And again, a lot of that starts with Caps, his flexibility, and also how they play around him as either a primary or a secondary carry, depending on what Jankos is playing as well.
Yeah, but you can see from like Faker's champion pool, right? The whole idea here is about, hey, look, we want to get out, have mid lane presence that can then share its presence in the side lane with like LeBlanc being able to roam, TF being able to roam, and even the Silas being picked up and within answers to Twisted Fates and Gallios and these kind of things. He's wanting to match the presence on side, and I think that's where you're seeing the reason we're seeing these massive massive early game advantages for T1 in this matchup specifically.
And to be fair, barring the Galio and a little bit of the Corki, the majority of the mid lane is playing these 5 champions here. So it's not like, Faker really isn't reaching or stretching in a way that we need him to stretch for T1 to find success. Now, since their 4-0 start in the Rumble stage, G2 and Caps have struggled at MSI, and Dracos will look at an area of improvement in neighborhood tactics presented by State Farm.
Thank you very much, Dash. Heralds are, of course, incredibly crucial for any team. T1's early game dominance is due in part to how fantastic they are at setting up around Herald. For G2, that has not been the case, and especially against T1. We're going to take a look at 2 Herald clips today, both going wrong for different reasons. Remember, whenever you're taking a Herald, you either want the Herald, that guaranteed money, or you want to make a play on the opposite side of the map. And in this first clip, what we're going to see here is that T1 are absolutely set up to take the Herald. And as we zoom in on this mini-map, Flacket on the bottom side, you'll notice is coming to this wave late. This means that he cannot get to the Herald first without giving up something in return. That means Tristana is going to move up first. Very easy time for the Tristana to come. T1 are going to have a man advantage at this Herald fight. Now, this means that G2, short of being willing to sacrifice a ton of CS, have no reason to fight this Herald. They have no reason to be there. Their support is level 5 to the level 6 on the opposite side. Now, despite that, as we roll out of the clip, you're going to see what we generally in the business like to call the tourist Herald. Now, I get it. They're legendary heralds. You want to spectate, you're in Busan, but G2 rather, do absolutely nothing in this play. They spend a ton of time, they stand around, they posture, they look menacing, they look tough, but ultimately they lose a herald in exchange for a single tower plate in Flacket. This is a horrible, horrible trade. Now, the second game, things get a little bit better for G2, you would think, because now they're moving Flacket up. They say, hey, you know what, we're willing, as we pause it here, we are willing to sacrifice a bit on the bottom side to get Flacket to come to the Herald. They're going to have that man advantage. They're going to secure that Herald. Here's the downside. It's easy to forget with all these new fancy champions, the Kaisas coming back, what exactly Aphelios does as a champion. But I want you to keep your eyes on Gumayushi. Yes, G2 are going to get the Herald. Keep your eyes on that Aphelios. Now, if you know Aphelios, you know this is the only champion in the game alongside Tristana that can never be left alone with a tower. That is 5 plates in the back pocket of Guma for a Herald that will ultimately take 2. Now, as the game continues, they'll move to the top side. Guma will use his newfound power. Before those plays, keep in mind, he was behind in lane. He was dove, he was misplaying, but now he's wildly ahead. He ends up getting 9 plates in this game. He ends up snowballing, and the team absolutely dominates. So for G2, respect those picks. Respect the unique strengths of Aphelios and Tristana. And while it's good to match on the Herald, you don't need to be spectators to it. Fight it or don't fight it. That's it for Neighborhood Tactics. Back to Dash and the desk to talk about drafts.
There you have it. I mean, we've talked about T1 all tournament long, one of the best early game teams we have here, and that in large part is the reason why. They've identified when they can go for certain things and when they cannot, and they still manage to find something cross-map when they can. I'm also kicking myself now because that first clip that he showed, very importantly, you'll notice that Keria goes mid lane, shares CS with this mid laner to hit that level 6, which if a fight is to come will be very impactful. And that was something we saw last year, if I recall correctly, at MSI, piloted by RNG, very specifically, intelligently moving their support up and kind of pioneering that entire strategy around the Rift Herald.
Yeah, I think especially for Ming was just very good to see him kind of the way they were able to integrate him into not only the top lane dives, but also fighting for the Rift Herald. So you got your setup in top side, then you'd get the presence mid, and you'd move up towards Rift Herald, and some of the T1 do a lot as well, right? You're looking at the way they play around Zeus. Now it's Keria sometimes getting involved in the mid lane push, but it's certainly much more focused around, hey, if we can get our top side ahead, that turns into a massive Rift Herald presence.
Well, we'll find out if G2 is watching Dracos' clips soon enough when that first Rift Herald spawns and the teams either collapse or don't for it. From there, though, I do want to go into a bit of a draft-focused conversation because, as we mentioned, that's both where G2 at times has found the most success, and we've talked about very early on in the tournament kind of was defining and pushing the boundaries of the meta. But likewise, we've also maybe had a couple stumbles in that realm. So we're going to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly here.
Yeah, so this is the initial Anivia draft, and as someone who has watched a lot of Evil Geniuses, knows what they like to do around team fights, this is great, right? Like, this is perfect against what they want to do. And then additionally, I love Again, Pyke is something we've talked about on Desk as being high prio for G2. I don't see G2 as like a super strong 2v2 bot lane, right? I think they're best when Flakked is carrying in team fights and Targamas is hitting those roam timers to go mid or top.
Yeah, and I want to point out the Anivia here. I was absolutely in love with it because I looked across to the opposite side. I was like, oh, you've got Ryze who wants to try and push in his lane, look for roams and side lanes, but you don't really have a jungler in the Karthus who can kind of help facilitate that push. He much more wants to try and farm it out. So when I saw the Anivia come through, I was like, this is genius, right? Because now you just get to full push the wave. You win out in the stronger mid-jungle 2v2 because you got the Graves there. And that Anivia means that she can continuously keep Ryze in check. So you never actually get Jojo Pyun to roam. And even when you have Jankos going for these level 3 ganks in the mid lane, suddenly this Anivia is massive. You get to play for the team fights like Emily was pointing out. It was such a good addition and a cool adaptation we haven't seen in so long coming through from G2.
I was in North America, 1 a.m. watching that game. The Anivia pick comes through, and I almost threw my headset across the room. So I was like, that's it. That's the end of the game. It was such an intelligent pick to bring really in, good. And it really did feel like it had a massive effect on the outcome of the game. That's some of the good. Let's talk about some of the ugly against RNG.
Ta-da! This is the Riven draft. I think the big thing for me is that when I look at Broken Blade, I think he is a phenomenal carry player. So the idea of putting him on something where he's just going to stomp lane, I don't disagree with in terms of his skill, but when I do think of G2's success and when they've been successful, I definitely think it's more in line with him being on something like, I mean, we saw the Ornn come out a ton in playoffs, but then like the Aatrox, the Vladimir, something where he's frontlining, joining up for team fights so that G2 can hit the mid game, again, with strong team fighting.
Yeah, and I think that's the big one for this draft as well, is that you're looking at, okay, well, we traditionally want to see Broken Blade on something that can zone or be that big frontline tool. You're running the TP and the Ignite on this Riven, so you're not going to have those big flash engages that you traditionally think of when you see the Riven. But also, if you're looking towards a mid-game, right, this is a composition that if it falls behind early, doesn't do particularly well. So when we end up hitting that late or that mid-game spot, it was just like, oh, well, we've got no damage left from the tank, no frontline. Like, what are we trying to do here?
And I'm so glad you brought that up because there actually is a play on the top side that sets the Riven ahead early. So then this lane that you really want to be like super dominant right into Bin's Gwen just doesn't end up panning out from the get-go.
All right, let's flip to the other side of things and take a look at T1's draft. We can't go ahead and criticize and go in depth on one and not the other. Starting again with the good.
Yeah, I mean, this one for me was kind of looking to see how T1 were able to use their advantages here to try and push ahead with the TF and that kind of stuff. But I think the big one was kind of looking again how they utilize the Twisted Fate in towards those side lane plays, right? Where you're able to start to roam out, get the Faker ahead, and then leaning in towards the top side for carry. And the whole idea for this was trying to get the Kennen ahead, and I actually liked it from the get-go. But I think the big problem for T1 with this draft was then how they tried to play it in the later portion of the game, which is where they didn't actually try to play for side lanes, right? Didn't try to draw G2 out. Instead, they end up running head first into this G2 composition, which then allowed the Diana and the Yasuo to have this great combo that was working super well, and that's where I think the big problem started.
Yeah, I mean, I just like I like when they put Gumayusi on something where he can end up like chewing through turrets early and then rotating him around the map. I think T1, like that's one of their strengths in the early game and one of the things I like best about them.
From there to their game against RNG, criticisms.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for RNG here, like, this is where I'm kind of looking and going, okay, well, we've got the affiliates that you can try and work with to push in on the bottom side, but I have to keep turning around because I can't see the thing on the backside. But
yeah, you're in the unfortunate middle seat.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all right, here's my big
ping-ponging back and forth.
You know, the front seat in the cinema where you're bouncing back and forth. But
I was gonna say, I can get up and like point out champions if you want.
But yeah, I think for here, at least again, you've kind of got the Twisted Fate that can try and play around side lanes to get the Aphelios ahead in the bottom side of the map. But it looks like when you look across at T1, you having this Lee Sin not being able to kind of get that setup that they wanted in the mid lane. But then when you start to push in towards the later portion of the game, the Twisted Fate is just able to roam around the map and get so much done working with the Viego. You've got good late game scaling and good setup for the Viego and the Aphelios and team fights as well. And even looking at the Xayah, right? Like, how do you try and play this composition as a Xayah? Because you can get the one ultimate for yourself with the Feather Storm to kind of bounce back out. But I mean, you've got a Gangplank that's going to be able to slow you down. You've got good backline access with the Twisted Fate. Viego diving on you as well. It just became really, really tough for T1 to actually actually enact any sort of game plan.
Beautifully said and beautifully executed. Dramatic chair turn. Sad we missed that one on camera. Now, obviously, plenty of advantages can be won or lost in draft, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the play on the stage. And as we've already talked about the mid lane matchup and how important it is, I now want to jump to the top side of things. We're just minutes away from the introductions themselves. So key players, I think this has to be the other matchup that we look at. I mean, just when you see the left column here on these statistics, it tells you that this match can be won and lost here in the top lane.
He's doing almost he has a kill participation that's almost a third of his team's total kills as a top laner. First in damage percent of all top laners as well, again, at almost 30%. I think the other most impressive thing, again, is the way that T1 facilitates this, right? So I talked about how, like, one draft we didn't see was the Aphelios Rumble draft that I really loved from T1, where they're just like, okay, you know what? We're going back to something that Guma's super comfortable on. Draco's kind of already pointed out how that Aphelios got ahead in terms of, not taking the Herald and taking those turret plates instead. And then I think Zeus on the Rumble was just phenomenal. Even when he got targeted, he was always able to clear out the lane, able to stay like even enough in that matchup. And just the way they play around him with set plays, Faker roaming top, Owner going up there, I think is really, really strong.
Yeah, I mean, Zeus is on it to be one of my favorite players to watch all tournament long. He's been so incredibly strong. And I think the one criticism that I have of T1 is I'd love to actually see them try and utilize him a little bit more in side lanes. I think when Zeus is able to get these massive leads, we've seen on Gangplank, the Aurelia, like you're seeing on your screen, I think there's moments where they could just leave Zeus in side lanes to annihilate people like Bin. Thank you very much. But I think from a carry standpoint, you can see the damage numbers are there. And on the flip side, I want to kind of see the opposite from G2, right? Like we've seen Zeus step up as this massive carry. I actually want to see Broken Blade kind of take a step back and go, right, I am going to play more like we saw domestically, right? Because when you look at G2 in LEC playoffs, it was a case of, hey, we're going to go towards Ornn. We're going to set up Flakked as a big team fight carry. And it was a definitive shift in style that we saw after that first round against Fnatic. So I definitely want to see kind of the Ornns, the Vladimirs that we were kind of highlighting,
Absolutely.
these kind of things where he can play the presence in the front line and buy space for Flakked in the back.
Yeah, Zeus is the highest damage per minute player at the entire tournament as a top laner. Last time we saw that, Emily Rand?
The Shy!
Yes.
Which G2 fans probably don't want to remember.
That's not what they want to hear. But both top laners filling very different roles for their teams. I'm excited to see them clash here today. It's time to check in with our MasterCard fan predictions. Make sure you vote every day at MasterCard Nexus on Twitter. There's only one more day to vote, and that would be for tomorrow's best of 5 finals. But let's see where the fans land on this one. I'm honestly a little surprised. Just again, based on the demographic of the people that we're appealing to. But there is faith in T1 to get that revenge in a best of 5 against G2.
So I'm kind of caught between the rock and hard place here, because it feels like this is going to be an incredibly close series, and a lot of it comes down to how the early game for T1 pans out, how they manage their mid game, and if G2 can kind of solidify that advantage for Caps in the mid lane and then actually play towards their mid game strengths, right? Because it feels like we've seen time and time again that T1 have this fantastic early game. You look against basically both games that we had against G2, T1 have been able to run away with this in the early stages, but at least in that first game, because G2 had that great team fight comp, they're able to come back to it. And that's where I kind of lean on maybe G2 being able to find their advantages is in the mid game with team fighting, because we continuously see these T1 Baron flips.
All right, a lot of smart talky things. And is this correct here?
Yeah, that's a 3-2
3-2
G2
is the
look,
call.
I'm wearing the badge. I gotta go with it.
That would have been a really a sweet bait, actually, though, after all of this.
Just
to go
take it off,
over to
throw it.
T1 side.
I was going to say, I didn't pick EG yesterday, but...
Emily, what do you got for us?
So, similarly, I don't necessarily think it's going to go to a 3-2. I am going 3-2 on the T1 side. I typically use this kind of thing more as Jat would say on our LCS desk, a confidence monitor in both teams. These are two teams that have shown really, really strong highs and then have had some lower lows in their games at this event. And they are both teams that are stronger in best of 5s, which I think is another very interesting thing. T1 in best of series are incredibly strong, and G2 are able to use their draft and their really strong coaching staff as well in best of 5. So I just think that overall, I give T1 the edge. I don't think they're going to be, having as much Baron trouble. Hopefully, they've ironed that out, and they seem to be drafting a lot more comfortably as well.
All right, well, a split decision.
Okay, look, here's the deal. It's semifinals. Drop that there. I don't need this wishy-washy. I don't need this 3-2. Because, look, I agree with all your analysis. I think it might even be very T1 favored. I'd say 60-40 to T1. But just because it's 60% doesn't mean I can't bet on the 40.
That's right.
If you bet on the 40 back in the day up against RNG when Perks was in Game 5, you would have been right. Hell, it might have been even 30. Could have done it in 2019. He would have been right then, too. Because just because they're the predicted favorites doesn't mean that you can't believe in them, and sure as hell doesn't mean I can't predict them.
Okay.
3-0 G2. Because if they're gonna win, it's gonna be dominant.
Also, the worse the odds, the better the payout.
60% of the time, it works none of the time.
These teams faced off in 2 epic best of 5s, and now we finally get the rematch in the knockout stage between the most winning team in League of Legends history, T1, and the 2019 MSI champions, G2.
Welcome to Busan! Welcome to MSI! 어디에서 함께 해주신 여러분 진심으로 반갑습니다. 바로 대구에서 펼쳐졌던 너거 스테이지 1차 대결 RNG가 EG에게 3대0 승리를 거두면서 내일 있을 파이널에 진출했습니다. 그리고 바로 잠시 후 내일 RNG와 멋지게 파이널에서 경기를 펼칠 2팀을 가려보도록 하겠는데요. 어떤 팀이 승리를 거두면서 내일 파이널 영광의 무대에 오를지, 자 그러면 경기에 나설 자랑스러운 팀들을 여러분께 소개해드립니다. 먼저 LEC의 맹수, LEC의 맹주, 유럽의 왕, MSI 트로피를 다시 한번 차지하기 위해서 이곳에 왔다. Let's go G2, Let's go G2, Let's go G2. 타 캐리형 탑 솔로 포큰 베이. 정글 포스트 브로드킹 양코스. 미드 서양 최고의 슈퍼스타 캡스. 바텀 고통은 나를 더 단단하게 강하게 한다. 프라켓. 서퍼 로밍의 대가 다르가마스. 여러분 한 번 더 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. We are G2. 이제 두 번째 팀 소개해드립니다. 사실 우리에게 이 팀에 대한 소개는 필요 없습니다. LOL 역사상 최고의 팀, 이것으로 충분합니다. LCK 전승 우승, MSI까지 제패하기 위해서 왔습니다. 여러분 만약에 홈 어드밴티지가 있다면 이럴 때 써야 하는 것이 아닐까 싶습니다. 여러분 함께 외쳐주시기 바랍니다. LCK 대표 T1. 다 신은 죽지 않는다. 제우스! 정글 정글의 정석을 보여주마. 오너. 미드 언킬러블 데몬킹 앤 greatest of all time 바텀 무서운 신이에서 이제는 무서운 킬러로 구마요시. 끝으로 역대급 천재 괴물 역전괴 캐리어. 부산 한 번만 더 부탁드립니다. LCK 대표 T1. 절대 무너질 수 없는 숙명의 라이벌 G2와 T1, T1과 G2가 벌이는 대결 바로 달려봅니다. 렛더 노가웃 스테이지 비긴. 지금 함께 해주시는 많은 여러분의 뜨거운 바로 함성과 함께 2022 MSI 노가웃 스테이지 2일차를 시작하겠습니다.
Ever since Season 3 and I saw Faker win his first trophy, I kind of decided that I wanted to be in his shoes.
Where were you when the West rose up?
2019년도 MSI에서는 저희가 무조건 우승할 거라고 생각을 했었는데
Often when you see these two go up against each other, G2 are very rarely the favorite.
생각지도 못하게 패배를 했어가지고
To take the trophy away from him meant the world to me.
2019년 때는 G2에게 MSI 월즈 둘 다 졌지만
그동안 저도 개인적으로 배운 것도 많고
잠깐 주춤했지만 T1은 무너지지 않는다는 걸 보여드리고 싶어요.
Many wondered if their form was temporary. Well, it seems like the Giants have awoken from their slumber.
G2 집에 보내드리겠습니다.
Going into a best of 5, this team has shown time and time again that it can bounce back.
Once the BO5 sits, that's when we'll strike.
T1's greatest weakness is that they are easy to read.
Double kill for Yegos already in the team fight, and team fighting this G2 is a mistake. T1 make again.
If their hand slips even one time, we might just get the momentum.
G2의 약점은 라인전이 다 약한 것 같아요.
Targamas immediately going to throw out the exhaust and gets exhausted as well. The flashes coming forward, first blood within the first 2 minutes. Absolutely ruthless.
It's easy to forget T1 haven't been able to bring home a trophy in front of the South Korean crowd.
MSI를 우승하고 싶은 이유는 저희를 계속 믿어주시는 팬분들 때문에 더 하고 싶어지는 것 같아요.
I know we might be the underdogs going into this matchup, but T1, I dare you to underestimate us. We've seen what happens when you do that.
G2 제가 지나간 자리 뒤로 많은 꿈들이 깨졌습니다. T1이 세계에서 가장 강력한 팀이라는 걸 증명하겠습니다.
We're here for one mission. To reclaim the glory for Europe.
I can't believe that after such an incredible streak, G2 still managed to come in the underdogs. It's absolutely unfair. T1 also did a little bit of losing, but they came back, and now we have to intro with T1 being the favorites once again. And as the LCK representative, it makes me nervous, Vedius.
I mean, why would it not? Of course. I mean, this was a similar situation to what we had in 2019, but I feel like that we're in for a bit of a closer series. At least that's what I hope, because as we've seen strengths and weaknesses from both teams during the Rumble stage. We've been given an opportunity to see both teams grow and evolve. But without further ado, we're going to jump straight into the draft.
Yeah, here we are, into the draft already. Yasuo going to be taken away here by T1, which is, yeah, that's a bit targeted, one could say.
And it also makes me wonder, are they going to first pick TF, right? Because that was obviously what was Snap picked, the Yasuo Diana into the blind TF against T1. First time that these two teams matched up. You know, will G2 ban out that TF? Or are they happy to match with something along the lines of a Sylas that a lot of people are pretty comfortable in? But that is definitely the comfort zone for T1 to play that sort of style. And they did create a massive early game advantage when they went for it in that first game.
Yep, exactly right. Of course, Nocturne being banned away does kind of allude to the TF as well, but the Gwen will come through. Jack's still available. A few options there for the top side. We'll see whether Broken Blade is going to elect into the GP matchup, which we've seen picked up as well.
This comes as no surprise, especially when you look at the number of games that Zeus has already had so far at this tournament on the Gwen. This will be his 9th Gwen game of MSI, and it's something that T1 have often defaulted to as a, well, either both a safe or a strong side of the map. They can either play towards it or they can leave Zeus on his own to be defensive. It is very much up to his discretion, as G2 going to very quick respond to Galio. Remember that this can be flexed between both mid and support.
EG played it support. Obviously, there is the ability to flex that around. The GP, I think, is the most standard answer, but Broken Blade, I don't think it's really as much in his comfort zone. He did play it against T1 last time, and G2 played very heavily towards him with it, but it didn't really end up resulting in much of an advantage for them. You know, Broken Blade wasn't really able to make good on all the ganks that Yanko spent up towards that top lane.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And now with the Gangplank being locked in, I really like this. It keeps things so ambiguous for G2, and this works especially well with Kalista still on the board, right? Because Kalista works very well with Galio there towards the bottom side. If you do want to put him in to a situation like that, flex it towards the mid lane or not. So still keeping things very much up in the air here for G2. Speaking of which, Xayah going to be locked in, and we'll see what Faker is going to take away for the first round of picks here for T1.
Expectations are that T1 is one of the strongest early game teams that we have at this tournament, and already you can see that emulated in their draft. Xayah can be a very dominant laner, especially when paired up with things like the Rakan. Gwen, known for her strong laning, and so far it seems that T1 is just trying to gain some control over the top and bot side of the map.
The Jarvan locked in here for Jankos. This was something he hasn't played as much at MSI, but was really loving in the LEC. I think it really does fit his playstyle. Even at MSI, we saw him pulling off so many 3-camp ganks on things like Graves that you're not expecting on. With the J4, he can find these creative angles. He can really get in, get active in the early game. And to me, that spells that they want to play it very, very aggressive here early on. The J4 is going to be a great champion to do it with.
Yeah, and also with the Gangplank there towards the top side, you lessen the opportunities for something like a Camille. Like the Galio delivery system is something that Jarvan has always been very good at. But T1 going to take their opportunity to get rid of the Kai'Sa. Of course, Xayah Kai'Sa. We all remember those days. And LeBlanc is going to be taken away alongside the second half of the Lovers duo in the Rakan. Sorry, Medic, it's not going to happen today.
I think the Kai'Sa ban makes a lot of sense here. To me, by far, that has been Flackhead's best champion. You know, he's been really dominant on it. And I think he's going to have to prove that he can really perform to the level of Gumayusi and Keria on other champions. If G2 are going to be successful in this series, you can't just depend on that one pick because he's going to get targeted.
Well, my expectation is that MF will be the direction that they go for. I do like the Senna ban. I think that actually makes a lot of sense because when we think about the Galio as a flex, Senna Galio was one of the common go-tos that you could draft towards the bot side of the map. But MF is the other one that I do think of. He did play a lot of Zeri during the, playoffs, and of course, we did see it a little bit at the beginning of MSI, but very debatable if it is still considered strong. A fairly Helios was actually something during the regular season he played a lot of, as every AD carry on the planet did.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Did you guys play Jinx too?
Yeah, they did in fact play a lot of Jinx.
Wow, Jinx from Arcade?
I know, crazy. But notice again that we are saving that final pick for that mid/support. They've kept the Galio as a flex, and it's gonna largely depend on how T1 choose to round up the draft as they continue with this strong bot side of strong laners. The Renata plus Xayah, a very powerful 2v2.
I really like Renata because of what G2 is drafting. You're kind of assuming it's going to be a lot of dive, right? It's going to be a lot of coming at you here, with the Galio, with the J4, with the GP. The disengage here, the ability to do that with the Renata ulti, and also the W, if you're just trying to zero out one target, can be massive.
This is so interesting. Tristana mid going to be locked in for Faker, but this is assuming the Galio is going into the mid lane.
Flex.
So we knew, of course, we'd spoken about it already, that is definitely a flex pick, but seems like Faker doesn't mind that whatsoever. Tristana going to be picked up and most likely heading towards that mid lane unless there's some Xayah shenanigans. Or if you want to put it top lane, like, who knows?
Lane,
Gwen could go in the mid lane.
It actually can work really well against GP, so there is a slight possibility. I'm expecting it to be for that Galio matchup here. But it is going to be...
Wow, we're just electing into
playing the Pyke, so they're just going to play into it. Now, I am assuming it is going to be mid. Tristana mid is much more common. It's a lot easier to kind of stay safe in that mid lane than in a long extended lane with this marksman. But you do have some really strong early aggressive matchups. Almost always you're going towards Halo Blade unless you want to kind of index towards later on. But with Halo Blade and Ignite, you do have the potential to all in very early. If you can get lane pressure, we know how Tristana can farm these turret plates. But that being said, if you do misstep against the Galio J4, that is a duo that can punish you very, very heavily. And if Triss gets behind early in that mid lane, you can start feeling pretty useless.
When I look at this G2 draft, I think it's very simplistic in its approach. And when we think back to their playoff run, it is very straightforward, easy to execute, with a lot of early game options as well. In particular, you can see with the mobility on Targamas and his Pyke and the J4 being able to be active in the early game, G2 do have early game options, prioritizing their scaling team fighting later. I think what is terrifying about the T1 draft is they have very dominant laners all across the board. They have an ability to build their own advantages off their own champions. On top of that, a huge amount of skill expression exists all across the board with things like the Xayah ultimate, the Gwen W, a lot of ways to avoid and disengage away from a lot of the dive that will exist. So even if G2 are able to find these fights, I think that T1 have options, even if on paper, it seems that G2 will be favored in the 5v5.
I mean, so much of it is going to be about the initial seconds of the fight, because if G2 don't find that perfect engage, there's Buster Shot and Rocket Jump from Tristana, there's the ultimate from Xayah, there's the disengaging ultimate there from Renata. If you're trying to dive through that, you all get caught up in that. You are going to get shredded. It can become very, very difficult. So G2 have got to be on point. Hit that perfect engage, have the follow-up, try to get that first kill with the Pyke, and we'll see if they can do it.
Yeah, well, here we are. Game number 1. T1 versus G2 here at the MSI 2022 knockout stage. Both of these teams, this series just means so much. G2, can they do it again in a best of 5? Can T1 really prove that this is the new look for the squad and they can get all of those former shadows away? Gumushi going to walk away from G2 here, spotted for a second there by Caps, but it looks like he will be okay. Flaps his way out.
So T1, they have information on this, and you can immediately see the cross map trying to get a little bit of information on G2's topside jungle. Will G2 look to split the map here, or are they just going to drop a bit of vision and then disengage?
Looks like they will. I mean, they're staying around a long time. They definitely want to go split map. This is actually very similar, but on opposite sides of the map to what happened in their second round robin game, where it was, Jankos playing top half split map towards Broken Blade on the GP, and it was T1 playing down towards their bottom lane, trying to get Gumayushi ahead. So we'll see now, with Jankos playing more towards that bottom side, T1 have the info. We are very likely going to end up in that cross-map situation, and we're going to have to find out how well can Broken Blade really withstand the onslaught, because he's the one that's going to be left to his own devices trying to survive up there.
And we've seen it's been difficult on both sides of this matchup. They are certainly knowing this one very, very well. Gentlemen, I do want to draw your attention to that mid lane.
Draw away.
It is our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz. And Faker, having paid about 72 unique champions so far in his career. He does have some stats on Tristana. Currently undefeated, 4-0. My kind of sample size. It's a very, very low one. It was a couple of years ago that he played it last, but does have some experiences. We also have a fight on the bottom side of the map. Targamas, though, he's going down very, very low. The Ignite is ticking. Gumayushi going to have to back away, though. And it looks like the Pike will slink into Fog of War and heal up.
G2 able to get level 2 first there and going for the aggressive all-in. This is something they've been really consistent with when they have that Pike. They want to look for the early kills, but it is now Pike without summoners. But trading summoners like this aggressively when it is split map and your jungler's on your side is great for G2 because Gumayushi now down flash could fall prey to a Jankos gank.
Exactly that. Azael, and I think it's important to recognize that, you know, Alice wanted to talk about this mid lane matchup, but we have to keep our eyes on bot because G2's whole game plan here has been about trying to shut this bot lane down. Jankos will be spotted on a ward.
I thought he was going to see it
information on this.
disappear as well. Yeah, they don't actually spot it. Jankos will just start off on the Crow.
But they're setting up for the dive, potentially, with the wave beginning to stack up. Of course, mid won't be able to roam down. Caps does have the TP, but won't really be able to leverage it this early on. Broken Blade is the person we have to keep our eyes on as he runs out of mana, and Owen looks for the dive.
Yeah, they have Ignite.
We'll see whether they can navigate this one. Stun does come through. Broken Blade burning down. That is going to be first blood. The flash comes in. Can Caps chase after him, though? 300 health on the Viego as he tries to get the stab through. It's a decent attempt for a stun, but Owner is going to be taken down. Zeus no flash, of course, and Caps is going to walk it out. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, Flacker takes down Gumayushi. What is happening down here? Carry is looking for the last shot. Fake is going to pick up the kill in the end, and that's a double for the best player in the world.
It's madness across the map here. 5 kills, 4 minutes in. T1, G2. We have to take stock of everything here that has happened, though. Caps TPing up towards that top side, does get a kill and gets out, but he's dropping waves to do it. Faker was able to push in the wave, go towards bot, get 2 kills. So to me, the big winner by far here is Faker in the mid lane. And we'll have to see if G2 on the other side can really make use of this 1 kill that they got flak at, because he is now quite ahead of Gumayushi, who lost that farm on the dive and did not get a kill himself.
Yeah, a lot of things that, as Azael highlighted, just happened in a very short period of time. I'm curious as to where the replay is going to start. So we're going to have a look at this bot lane. As you can see, a level advantage for G2. The aggro starts by being taken by Targamas. Then they're going to set up the focus onto Gumayushi, but the damage onto Jankos and the fact that Flackett can't kill Gumayushi quickly enough means the Faker has enough time to get down here, and look, he's in the perfect position to set up for these 2 kills. Throws the Ignite down onto Flackett. Carrier's going to throw down those auto attacks to help secure that kill, and Faker's going to shut down onto Jankos. So just really good response there from Faker. The dive didn't go out the way in which G2 wanted, and on the top side of the map, T1 pulled off a well-executed dive themselves, so T1 with a very big lead already.
But they're looking for a repeat now. They know the summoners are still down on Gumayushi. Caps, though, spotted out, and Owner going to intercept here, make things a little bit awkward as Faker's now cheating down. They're going to collapse.
Carry's going to handshake Caps here. He's looking to try and get out. The blast cone's going to disappear, though, and he does have the taunt, but that's exactly what T1 wanted, I think. Faker's going to jump over the wall, and it's just a matter of a few seconds. Can these double buffs actually be taken here by T1? As Faker, I think, should be able to get an auto in. Oh! It is going to be Owner that locks down the kill, so claims the double buffs, and Faker looked like he didn't want to take it.
Well, I think it was one of those situations where there's never really a bad one, right? Either your junglers get the double buffs refreshed, or the mid laner gets another kill. But the fact that G2, they keep trying to attack the spot lane and the action continues.
Yeah, Flackett taking a fair bit of damage here as Targamas is going to disappear for a moment. Owner's down here as well, though. And it feels like both of these teams just testing each other at every single turn.
Yeah, absolutely. They're both fully down to scrap here. You know, Faker, I think he would have liked the kill, but probably would have had to commit his flash to get it and just decided it's not really worth expending that flash to do so. We'll hold on to it. He is getting very far ahead of Caps, though, because Caps has been aggressively roaming and is in this counter matchup. But we can see Jankos now out around mid, and Faker is very far pushed up with no wards. So potentially they could make something happen, but it looks like Jankos is heading to bot.
Yeah, Flackett's in a little bit of trouble here. His owner's going to rotate over, looking for some vision. That control ward is going to spot him out as he makes his way in. Jankos as well, completely unseen right now as Faker moves himself out of the brush. That control ward would spot the Jarvan if he was going to come in, but right now going to stay in Fog of War. Explosive charge onto Caps. It's just such a difficult matchup here for the Galio.
The experience difference is really starting to build, though, especially along with the gold lead that T1 have been able to accrue. Notice that there's a jungle experience lead, of course the mid experience lead, as Azael was already highlighting, with Caps roaming around the map so much. The bot lane, given that they've been able to weather the storm, have done a really good job, and it surprises me because when we think about expectations coming into this matchup, T1 was expected to get this early game lead, especially with the draft that they have drafted for themselves. The fact that G2 trying to be so aggressive in the early game to try and match and challenge this. They had a very clear game plan of attack the bot side of the map. But now I'm worried for G2 because this early game style is not something that we typically see from them. This level of aggression is not something that we often see from them. And now it's only going to make those team fights that they want to play towards even harder.
It absolutely is. And we know that T1 is just so deadly with a lead. In 9 out of their 10 Rumble games, they were able to grab that first Herald. In 10 out of their 10 Rumble games, they were able to secure first tower, never once giving up a tower pre-14 of their own. And when T1 gets ahead and they're able to grab the Herald, they can snowball that game very, very quickly. Faker already has the push here. He's got about a plate and a bit down on that mid lane tower. If he gets a bit more chip damage, that's dead to the Herald.
Yep, but you have to remember that in the first game, these two teams faced off in 5,000 gold was the advantage that T1 managed to accrue in the early stage of the game, and that seemed to be G2's sweet spot. I remember that. I was there, and it hurt my feelings just a little bit. Yeah, it's certainly something that history has denoted before, but G2 now looking for an opportunity on the bottom side. Gumayusi and Keria not going to give them that one, but Red and White Guns going to tear through that turret beautifully here for Flacket. And G2 look to have the game plan of we're going to try and get our bot lane as far ahead as we possibly can, and then hope that we can win these later game team fights.
So I like the initial decision from G2. I like the response from T1 even more. Dropping the Herald mid, I think makes so much sense because it gives you so much more map control, and Faker's ability to siege is super strong as they look for another dive.
Yeah, Cataclysm's going to start this one up as Jankos trying to get out of there, is going to survive for now. Gumayusi looking to get out. The Ignite is ticking down, but it looks like he might have got himself to relative safety. No, the answer is absolutely not, and it's a great dive to come on through. Even though G2 punch each other just a little bit on the way out, it's not going to be enough to turn it.
But look at mid lane. They got 2 towers, 2 full towers there. Faker, if we get a look at the gold lead, is going to be astronomically ahead. Already has the Mythic complete here. Well, Caps has got some steel shoes and a Kindle gem.
And you look at Broken Blade as well. He can't approach that tower because of the control that T1 have in mid. The threat of a dive is very real, so he's going to lose a whole wave off the back of that. Zeus is building a level lead. The jungle lead is starting to build. And yes, G2 are finding advantages towards the bot side of the map. Flackhead is getting very far ahead, but the rest of the map going in favor of T1.
Yeah, critical that Gumayusi did hit 6 prior to this dive going off. Right on that last minion, flashes out, looking like, hey, he might have been able to get away, but Flacket connects with the ult on Keria under the tower, finishes him off.
Really nice sidestep from Keria there. Props to him, making it that bit harder for Flacket to secure that kill. And huge props to the T1 bot lane, because really that's their first loss of the game in terms of the aggression that they've experienced in the bot side of the map. They've weathered the storm about as well as they could, but the good news for them is the rest of the map is going exceptionally well for T1. So yes, Gumayusi, you have been attacked a lot, but the good news for you is you've got Faker and Zeus sitting in a very comfortable spot.
They drafted the contingency plan.
Yeah.
You have 2 marksmen. If one is behind, you got the other.
That's exactly what I was talking about. And I can feel the sighs of relief from our analysts that are just back there saying, oh yeah, they always have a plan for if something's being taken cross map. I said that before. You know, we've been saying it all tournament. In the meantime, there's a fight here towards the bottom side. Nice sidestep there from Gumayusi, still being able to weave through these autos. Ona turns up as well. Targamas in trouble, but is going to stay alive for now. Gumayusi not going to be able to find that kill and will be taken down. G2 now happy with what they've taken. Faker moving on in. It's a flash forward. It's Yanko's going to get headshot out of that opportunity. Faker's going to pick up the kill as he dives on in, and he's not going to be over hungry to pick up more of these resets as T1 answer back.
What a play by Keria, though. The timing on the handshake, yanking Jankos back here right as Faker arrives. So T1 get the return kill. They're pushing in. And they're 8 and oh my god, they're so far ahead already. 4,500.
So many plates. It's more than a kitchen here towards the bottom side, as that is going to be the ulti going wide from Keria. Unfortunately, Faker decent sidestep on the Winds of War. But G2 tidy up the minion wave, and they're not going to lose too many more of those plates bottom lane.
Okay, I feel like there was a movie about bullets bending.
Yeah, Wanted.
I feel like all of the skills are just bending around T1 because they're sidestepping everything. Okay, it's disgusting to watch how good they are at dodging all of these skills. But such a well-executed early game once again from T1. And, you know, we talked about it yesterday on the analyst test. The analyst talked about it again today. trying to fight this team in the early game is a very difficult thing to do. Look at how much they're sidestepping. Gumayushi going to see the EQ, sidestep that once again, and the props to him. There's only so much he can do, and this much is thrown at him, but the response from T1 is equally as strong.
I mean, it's incredible, right? Like, it should have just been a super easy free kill, but they're able to avoid the pike hook. They're able to avoid the knock-up. We can see in the replay, Broken Blade going to get away, but there is that handshake pulling him back. And Faker comes in with the Gale Force active, gets that kill. They secure the Dragon. I was going to say 8 plates, but they made a liar out of me as they grabbed another plate top. So they're up to at least, I think, 9 now at this point.
Yep, Zeus also going to make it out before the ward comes down. So he's going to escape unscathed. 3-0-0 on the Tristana. And I love this, you know, because the bottom lane was getting talked up so much coming into MSI, of course, for T1. Gumayushi Carrier, best bottom lane in the world. I was one of the people on tape saying that. And it looks like G2 got the memo. They're like, well, we're going to take down this best bottom lane in the world. And you know what that means? That means Faker's 3-0-0 with a billion farm left completely on his own to wipe out every plate on the map. It's absurd. Gets another full tower here on the bottom side of the map before plates go down.
And it's just such a smart pick. You know, coming into yesterday's series, I was thinking if we were going to see this kind of matchup, it would be against Xiaohu, because he's such a Galio guy. He's known for it.
You can imagine they were ready for the Galio matchup, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we didn't get to see that. And then here, you know, G2, I think less expected that they would just be slapping down the Galio this early. But T1 very clearly ready with the game plan. It has worked out incredibly well. Both their marksmen now on Gale Force here. You can see despite all of the effort to put Flacket ahead, Gumayushi is right up there with him. He is 600 gold down, but he has the same items in inventory right now. And T1 have opened up a nearly 6,000 gold lead here, not even 14 minutes into the game.
Half of that's on Faker.
And the thing I want to really iterate here is that T1 didn't even do much to set Faker up to get that. It was very much a G2's early game proactivity, Faker was just the recipient of. All those bot lane dives, sure, I'll roam bot, I'll pick myself up a couple kills. Oh, Caps, you don't want to be in lane? That's fine. I'll take your plates, I'll take your towers. And it's literally just been T1 punishing all of the decisions that G2 has been making in this early game. And this was one of the big concerns I had for trying to match this team in the early game, because T1, regardless of what you try to do to them, within the first 15 minutes of the game, they have a plan, they have a response, and they will look to punish you for every small mistake you make.
Well, Cannon Barrage available here for Broken Blade, but they're not going to go for it. Faker is going to make it out. Just a rocket jump required as they look for this Herald.
And one of the most impressive things about T1 to me is that just through pure laning skill, they're often able to get advantages on both sides of the map when it's really supposed to be a trade, right? You're supposed to trade Dragons on bot side for Herald and a gold lead on top side. But T1 is able to outplay in so many situations and have so many incredible individuals as far as the laning goes that, you know, really, it was a split map, bot side advantage for G2. All Owner did top was one quick dive and then a left Zeus alone, and then he was just covering bot on the other side of the map. You know, he was able to really reduce the advantages that G2 could get because he was so efficient with his gank top and so effective with his pathing towards bot.
Yeah, and this is actually what Faker is doing here with the mid lane Tristana is what we see so many Tristanas do. It's very similar to why Caitlyn is so popular in the LCK. You rotate her to every lane that has a turret that's accessible and you destroy all of them. This is something that DRX was very good at doing alongside Deft. They would just move. Is it just he's a demolition machine. That's all the Tristana is supposed to do. And then Faker hoovers up all of that money, and that trough that we talk about doesn't exist. He has 11 items by like 20 minutes in the game, and then it is over. And so far, that game plan has been completely unhindered.
So the thing I now have to kind of bring our attention to is this T1 mid game. You are quite familiar with it, Atlas.
Most 20 minutes is a danger zone.
That's why I was getting in all my positives.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking at the clock.
But he's like, it's my time to strike.
That's the thing. And that's the thing I want to keep reminding people, of course, right now, T1 look very much in control. And on paper, the argument would be, this is T1's game to lose. And I think we can all agree with that, especially with their position and their ability to siege. So the question is, can they do it cleanly? Because the criticism and the reason why they looked weaker during the first stage of the Rumble was because they would get these leads and then they would get overeager to try and force fights, they would rush Baron, they would flip Baron, became a bit of the meme during the Rumble stage, and so as you transition into this mid-game, scrutiny and the eyes are going to be on this mid-game and T1's ability to use this lead to close out the game cleanly.
I think one of the most atypical and interesting stats from the Rumble stage was that every team that took a Baron against T1 was actually behind in gold when they did it. Not one team took a Baron from ahead in gold, and that kind of speaks, I think, to some of the problems that they were having around Baron. Also, the vast majority of the kills against T1 post 20 minutes, also at the Baron pit. So they definitely had some troubles there. But we also saw in the last match that they had against G2, they kind of used some of their faults at the Baron to bait G2 into actually face checking them, right? Because everyone was thinking, all right, well, G2, here they go. T1's over at the Baron, time to get a free ace in a Baron, get right back into it. And T1 didn't even start it up in that case. They really played into the fact that they had made those previous mistakes. So we'll see if they can actually do that again and remain very, very clean, because they are just monstrously ahead. 7,000 gold, 17 minutes is a shellacking, and it's going to take some real playmaking from G2 to try to crawl their way back into this one.
It's certainly a toughie, but I was going to talk about like the down 6,000 gold power spike for G2 and things like that, but it's, you know, moving ever further towards closer to 7 right now. That is 2 Drakes behind, as well as the Hextech Soul coming in. I got excited for a moment, but then I was unexcited afterwards as the clouds
dissipated.
dissipated.
The wind in your hair.
I certainly did, you know.
That was me, actually. I was just breathing.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you whether you felt it as well, but
is that how you breathe?
I was blowing on him, you know. It's just a little.
Yeah.
But
I liked it a lot.
Maybe I'm really excited if NA wins the game.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll see what the Thomas is going to surprise. Distracting you guys with a little bit.
Calm down. It's okay.
Zeus now should be able to swag his way out of that one totally fine. You can see how much control T1 have over the map once again. G2 is looking for a pick here and there, but I don't think Targamas wants to take that fight. And I just want to bring attention to the number of towers that are up and available right now. There is a lot of standing gold, I would say, for G2 to grab. The question is, can they grab it? As an ultimate comes in from Jankos.
Yeah, that is a Cataclysm come down. Great handshake does come through there as Caps does try to get out the taunt, but he's not going to be able to find it. The Gale Force is going to be able to keep Yushi alive. Caps flashes away, but Faker just assassinates Blackett in the backline. Targamas trying to get out of there now, as well as the resets will come in. Jankos is lying on the ground, and this taunt is not going to work. The Heartbreaker is going to come through, but Oner is going to get taken down. Caps goes golden again at exactly the right time. Zeus now wrapping around Carrier, moving in, flashes forward, doesn't get the handshake though, as Broken Blade melee range against this Renata, but it looks like Carrier doesn't really mind. Zeus is so scary, but the top lane, they're losing everything. This is why I keep casting team fights, and the whole base is exploding.
T1 are winning on the other side of the map. A very scrappy fight here between G2 and T1, but T1 taking the Hex Gates, they grab that top inhib, and they are getting further and further ahead here. Really close fight, but you can just see the gold lead for Faker. I mean, look at mid lane. It's 5,000 gold individually ahead there. Everyone is paper to Faker here. He's got the BF gold. He already has his crit cloak, so not too far off getting that IE at this point.
It's once again a situation where T1 is just the recipient of G2's decision-making. G2 feel pressured, and they go to try and make a pick happen. The ultimate comes through. I mistakenly believe that move is a flash for some reason. And in any case, G2, look at how aggressive they are in the bot lane. Once again, where there's the storm. Gumayushi and Carrier just buy time. And then look at this play from Faker. The combo was beautiful. The flash from the hook as well helps secure the kill. Broken Blade's not even there to assist, and again, like, T1 didn't have to do anything there. They just responded to the plays being made by G2, and they were the benefactor of the play.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's a lot of the plays start to look bad when you're this far down, right?
Yeah.
Because there's just so few options. I respect G2, you know, going for that winning play, and I think to actually play to win in this game, you've got to just constantly look for picks, hope that there's mistakes on the T1 side, so they go for this aggressive play. Doesn't quite work out for them because T1 is in the area, can collapse and really punish. And even the top lane becomes quite concerning now when you see the second item is already through there for Zeus. Second item in for Gumayushi, albeit a cheaper build than what Flacket has, but he's really kind of back to parity. And Faker only needs a couple hundred gold here for his IE, and then he is just going to be completely uncontested on the map.
Yeah, if he's not already at this stage of the game. The IE does come on through. Oner also sitting on a couple of items. That is a full completed item ahead of Jankos on the other side of the rift. This is getting, the amount of surmountability is not very high for G2 at this stage. 8.5 thousand gold in the lead. But this is exactly the time that G2 might have a chance as T1 are ripping through this Baron. Jankos is inside the pit. Can he make it a 50-50? No, he can't keep himself alive. The ult from Renata will make sure no one can answer. The Baron comes through, and T1, I think they're just a little too far ahead.
T1 tear through G2. They kill off Jankos before he has any chance to steal here. And now with the Baron buff and the super minions coming in top lane, it's looking like it could be a 22-minute end.
An absolute slaughter from the side of T1 as the 5 members make their way towards the first Nexus of potentially many as they're looking to secure game 1 in this best of 5.
Yeah, and at least another couple of Nexi will go down, but Broken Blade on the fountain looking to try and push them away. One Nexus turret is going to stay up as all of T1 take a little bit of a Hextech ride to get themselves back towards the base. They'll grab a reset before they try to end.
Wow, they must be really good friends with Jace that they can all get a premium pass out of base like
that's
that.
pretty cool.
That's pretty convenient. But G2, this is going to give them a small mercy. They will not lose their base just yet. The potential to find that miracle fight still exists, but a miracle is exactly what it must be to turn this game around.
He's hex gating in blind.
We're just hex gating. We're just like they're just beelining towards the G2 base right now. Targamas on a control ward, so he's going to be all right. But it looks like T1 will detour to the Drake.
Who needs wards when you are the ward?
Yeah, exactly.
I am become the vision.
What do I got to be scared of if I can just check with my wallet, right?
Yeah.
Just walk in there, secures the vision.
Slap it down.
And now they're making their way towards the base of G2 once again. T1 with a dominant first game. And again, what's incredible is they really didn't have to do a lot. They just waited for G2 to do things, and then they punished the things.
Yeah, and it worked out very, very well. I think the Tristana pick was fantastic from Faker. G2 deciding not to move the Galio elsewhere. Zeus is just going to dash out of the way, the flag and drag. Multiple turrets going down at the same time. They are going to do this one by the book as the inhibitor falls on the bottom side of the map. G2, all 5 are alive, but the wallets are just feeling a little thin. Caps now looking for his opportunity, does find the taunt. Winds of War comes through, but the Justice Punch is only going to move him further into danger. He goes golden to see his death for a moment, but T1 will be able to take him down. They'll look for this mid turret as Jankos in the middle of his Cataclysm is just going to die. And I think that's going to spell the end finally here as the Bone Skewer comes forward. Faker will get taken down, but Blackett is going to get answered immediately. And remember, T1 have a backup 80 carriers. Gumayushi's going to be able to pick up a few extra autos before destroying this Nexus. And honestly, this game 1 felt personal on the side of T1, and we'll see whether G2 can answer back in game 2.
The game plan was very clear from G2 in how they attacked the bot lane, but the bot lane of T1 did a fantastic job of mitigating, buying time, weathering that aggression, and sure, they didn't come out of it unscathed, but they did their very best. And while they were doing that, the rest of the map was just being dominated by T1. The control they had in mid, the control they had on top, the use of the Herald to open up the map even more, make it harder for Caps to roam, was just a flawless early game. And G2 tried to go toe-to-toe with the best early game team in the world, and they fell short.
Absolutely. And I mean, I just think so much of the game was about the Tristana pick because it's so punishing on the roams. You're always going to be under your tower. Caps can't just do nothing with this pick in the early game. He can't just sit there and trade farm. You're going to slowly lose your tower. So he decides, all right, the play is to just drop waves, move towards the sides, but that guarantees Faker a CS advantage, that guarantees him the plates, and then insult to injury when he comes down towards bot and picks up 2 easy kills. Now all of a sudden, he has perfect farm, he's taken the plates, and he's gotten the kills without having to expend much time roaming. And then really the only thing G2 can do from there is try to just keep roaming, keep making plays because they've already, kind of dug themselves this big hole.
Yeah, it was a beautiful answering pick. But as we go to a break, let's check out T1's comms from their dramatic win versus RNG on the last day of Rumble stage in Sounds of the Game, presented by Bose.
막아줄게. 나 궁은 없다는데? 내가 안에 핑크 할게. 텔점. 나 일로 돌게 내가.
오케이. 나 쳐보.
오케이. 스마 싸움도 되긴 해. 핑크 까줘, 핑크. 오케이. 나 돈을 줘. 앞에한테 공 꽂줘. 볼게. 강남은 꺼졌어 일단.
일단 꽂았다.
일단 먹어.
먹게 했어.
아래부터 아래. 뒤에 못해.
아래 좋아. 야, 나 못 가. 오케이.
괜찮.
천천히 봐, 천천히. 앞에 거 앞에. 미드.
너 마이크 안 나가겠다, 연준아.
볼만해? 이거지.
야, 안 잡아도 돼, 안 잡아도 돼. 안 잡아도 돼.
야, 이거 개플 생각해, 개플.
갱만 끊자. 갱패공 깔릴 수도 있어.
술통 고음프로 스근하게
야,
까봐.
라인 지킬게.
이거 못 끝내도 돼. 우리한테 봐.
스근하게 고음프로 까면 돼.
내가 돌풍 이니셔도 돼. 개플 풀에 있다.
끝낼만해.
죽여도 돼. 나 빨라. 나 초식에도 있다.
퍼져서.
바텀라인 데려 꺼내줘봐.
라인 먼저.
친다, 나 친다.
타워.
야, 점사해야 돼, 점사.
타워. 나이스.
나이스.
죽여줬어, 그냥.
The world is watching. Get on board. Check the lanes. Pay attention to the best. Join the ranks. Be the challenger. All in for the trophy. This is for all senses. This is for all players. Buckle up. Take notes. MSI 2022. Driven by Mercedes EQ.
It's like a
Yeah, I can't change the culture. I see the hate, so say what you say, cause I gotta watch for the vultures. Why I'm too nice, you see the ice, plus I'm only getting colder. You just tryna flex like you got next, really you know that it's over. Yeah, hey, I don't need no co-star, been gone like so far. Plus I'm catching all the rays from the sun, give me power like I'm solar. You cannot catch the drip, yeah, that is unless you a coaster. And we up, yeah, way up, yeah, they gon' put this on a poster. I got many dreams, I got plenty things that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, I got many dreams, I got plenty things, yeah, that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, I got many dreams, I got plenty things that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, I got many dreams, I got plenty things that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, I put that on me. Yeah, I put that on me. Walk tall, see the car, doing nothing small, I'ma be the greatest. Good luck keeping up everything I can, you know what the name is. Plus I've been through the training, straight shot how I'm aiming. Never stop, try to put me in a box, boy, you can never frame this. I am what you might be, too fast and I'm too strong. I might juke y'all like I'm lightning, spook y'all like I'm frightening. They ain't never seen it like me, got my team right beside me. High tide, I'm rising, my time that's timely. I got many dreams, I got plenty things that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, I got many dreams, I got plenty things, yeah, that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, I got many dreams, I got plenty things that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, I got many dreams, I got plenty things that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, I put that on me. 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 I got now, don't know who got next. Just like that. Better many dreams, I got plenty things that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, I got many dreams, I got plenty things, yeah, that I wanna see. Will I put that on me? Yeah, ready to fire, ready or not, we letting it go on.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk. After a blistering start to our Best 5 series, T1 taking game number 1 and in fairly dominant fashion. Emily, I'm going straight to you on draft, because we had plenty of draft conversation about both of these teams. At times good, at times bad. Who won out? Where did you land on this?
So the big thing here was the Tristana mid pick, obviously, because I talked a lot previously about how T1, when we saw them be so indomitable in the regular season, it was when they could rotate their AD carry around to kind of chew through turrets early. Little did I know that AD carry was going to be Faker and not Kumayushi. I just think it was a great response to what G2 had locked in, both in terms of the lane, and also we saw a little bit of a role reversal with Faker taking a carry role and Caps trying to spread his influence to sides.
Yeah, Draco, so I want to say it was so big brain of us to make that our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz, but it really just couldn't have been any other way. The two mid laners going toe-to-toe in game number 1.
Yeah, you see it in the draft. The just straight up just blind Galio feels like a call-out to me.
Yeah.
Because Faker's champion pool has been, they banned away the LeBlanc here, keep that in mind, but like he has been about facilitating. It's never been about mid lane. So I think Caps was just expecting like, oh, get a handshake on just doing nothing in the lane. And he's like, oh yeah, have you seen Tristana? And there's clearly an option later in the draft where, at least to me from an outside perspective, it looks like maybe they're debating flexing the Galio so they can get it powerful. But the thing is, Tristana is so good in the mid lane. It's actually really hard to find a champion who can outpush her early game. So G2, they have to split the map. They make some things work. But ultimately, I think they were just not ready for Faker to pull out a lane dominant pick that is dominant as Tristana here, and it's very clear in what happened in the game that Faker just made this work.
Yeah, and I think T1 as a whole had a really good understanding of what G2 wanted to accomplish with this draft, right? Because you look at the Galio and the GP, I personally am never a big fan of having like GP with like a Twisted Fate or Galio, because I think personally it just means that you don't really have the opportunity a lot of the times to play towards that top side of the map. You're very focused on the bot side. So T1 basically read this and said, okay, cool, well, we're going to have this pushing bot lane as well. We're going to make sure that we have Faker on the Tristana. So every time you end up trying to make plays in the bot side, either Faker is taking turrets in the mid lane, or you end up in a situation where you actually just can't get the push on the bottom side. You can't actually play with the Galio towards that bot lane and feeding the Aphelios turret plates like you want to.
I 1000% know that this is not the point you were making, but all I kind of heard there is there is such a thing as too much global. Yeah, not
no.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I was like, Emily would be the first one to be like, absolutely not. Give me more of it, please. Well, once again, it was our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz. Caps, Faker, a curveball already in the draft, but then it's about how does it play out. And there was action across the map early on where both of these mid laners are finding ways to get involved for their team.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at a lot of these plays, like some of the initial early aggression from G2 is really positive. They split the map, they play towards the bottom side, it looks good, but ultimately Caps is losing individually in lane, further exacerbated by him roaming, trying to make plays, trying to get kills back. And while, yeah, some of the initial kills look positive, the kill trades are even, Faker's pulling ahead in CS and still making just as much impact, and he has to make plays. That's what sucks for Caps. If he sits in lane, Faker wins, Faker gets plays anyway. If he roams and makes a play, maybe he gets something back. So there's no winning, there's just degrees of losing for Caps in this position.
Well, it's not like Faker, as you said, was just sitting in mid, right? Like he was responding, when Caps TP top. He's actually was already rotating before that happened down to the bot side to respond to the play there. So it wasn't just that, oh, he's on Tristana, this lane dominant champion, and then he gets that double kill in bot lane early. It's also that he still has an incredible understanding of side lane pressure.
Yeah, and that was the thing, right? Because you saw the play going in towards the top side of the map from T1, and instantly Faker started to move down. And that's what you can see. He got the 2 quick kills early. Then you end up looking again, it's like, oh, okay, well, we don't actually have to try and respond to G2 on the bottom side because we've got that Rift Herald mid at 9 minutes. We're going to take two turrets in that mid lane as well. And you look at like 13 minutes into the game, Faker's 2.5k gold up. He's got 2 items before Broken Blade has even finished his Triforce. Like, Faker was huge in this game. And from that position, there's no real way coming back into this, especially when you look at like 3 losing lanes across the board. Like, what do you do as G2?
Great call out, because that would have been the concern, right? Again, when we just talk about the tournament trajectory of both both of these teams. T1 is where we've had the questionable mid games. Those Baron flips you heard the casters talking about. As Zale, I think, with the fun stat, all of the Barons taken against T1 are ones that, you know, essentially T1 started and ended up in a flip, or were from teams that were behind in gold, rather, I guess was the exact stat. G2, a couple looks, trying to get back into it. Attempts by Jankos and Caps to find the plays, but just too little too late.
Yeah, and they kind of have to, right? Because like you're put in a position where, as Draco's already said, you do need to make plays. You need to try, like, you're kind of out is like, oh, maybe we set up and engage. We look like it's in our favor, and Flacket gets some kills. And that one, you just see the Tristana come around the backside of the fight, and he gets assassinated pretty early on. So, but I don't mind G2 going for those plays, because what else are they going to do?
And I just think that as much as it's cool to look at those and be like, oh, maybe this is the turn, that game was by all accounts over, because unlike some of the other games where the gold was a little bit closer and T1 were probably throwing, T1 probably just win if G2 do anything that involves losing multiple members in that circumstance. So I think at G2, you just stop watching after the draft in the early game. That's the reality, because two things went wrong here, and I think it's mostly around the draft, and it's also around, I think, the fact that G2 overvalued a lot of the information that they got the second time these played. G2's only winning early game against T1 was when they split the map on top side. They thought, hey, let's split the map again. But the second that Tristana pick came out, that plan went into the gutter, and G2 clearly were not ready for it.
All right, so if that's what G2 should do, let's do the same. Let's look forward to game number 2. What are the learnings here from G2 as they hop on over to the blue side? So they want to switch up priority in the draft immediately.
So at least for me, it's kind of having multiple lanes that you can try and play around. I feel like when you've got the GP in the top side, you're going, hey, we're going to play weak side. You very definitively were going to play around bot side, and T1 with like early ward control, everything, we're set up to try and cover that. So I think having a bit more flexibility when it comes to how you can try and play the early game is going to be massive for G2. And then also go back to the game plan we were talking about in the desk. Like, I want to see Broken played on things where he is a bit more of a frontline tank. Like, play for your team fights. Make sure that you're actually able to get yourself set up correctly here as G2, because the win that they got against T1 was through team fights.
And piggybacking off of that, I do think another alternative is to just go with, you know, Caps is on a carry, and we're playing around mid jungle, and Flacket is also on something that can carry later on in the game, but just attacking mid jungle really, really aggressively, I think is also a pretty good strategy for G2 here.
I just think there's a lot of holes right now in the G2 game plan. Too many people need too many specific things for this team to be successful. They're just not at an advantage in draft, which is kind of what we'd hoped would be one of their strong points. But I would say at the core, when you go down, the most important thing is strong jungle mid. If Jankos and Caps are set up, yes, Flacket also needs a pick he's comfortable and can be independent on. Yes, Broken Blade needs a champion that he can impact team fight. Those things are all important. But you're not even going to get to the point where those things matter if your jungle mid can't at least push out the mid lane and impact the rest of the map.
Oh, boy. Well, that's what makes it feel then like the Trist was a really intelligent wrench to throw at G2 in game number 1. The question is, can G2 bounce back in game number 2, or will the T1 dominance continue? Atlas, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dash. And yeah, let's hope that G2 can fight back. Because even as the LCK representative, I'm not used to this, right? We're used to losing this matchup. T1 versus G2 has been so G2
before.
I know, but we often, you know, in this circumstance, it's not necessarily the greatest for T1. So let's see whether G2 can at least come back.
Atlas.
Well, I'm trying to bring it back. I'm trying to reel it in. You're like, no, your favorite. No, your favorite.
Yeah, exactly. No, your team is way better. My region sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just sitting here. My team already eliminated. Just. Yeah. Okay, boys. Yeah. All right.
I was doing my best lyric impression, just seeing what I could get done.
Being like, imagine being a favorite.
It couldn't be me.
Yeah. It's good to be on a desk with Eel. I really like it.
All right. So you're right. Let's focus in and think about like what is the adaptation here for game 2, because something we were talking about was, my opinion is G2 should try and eliminate that Gwen in some way, either prioritize it or ban it away. You guys are talking about how in terms of this mid lane matchup, what direction can we go in terms of what is the priority? Will the Ahri actually be something that Caps can get his hands on, something that we've seen dominate throughout this tournament? Will Faker still save that counter pick for something creative? Is that actually T1 to answer by limiting Caps' impact? Do they find a way to actually shut G2 down?
And it's so interesting. Caps and Faker have so much history now. You know, in the 11 games that they had played against each other. They've been so back and forth, 13 now with the Rumble stage, including the game that we just saw. Faker ahead in CS at 15, 7 times.
Yeah.
Caps ahead 7 times, right? So it's now exactly 50-50 as far as who had that lead. Because of the way the Caps plays, though, often when Faker is ahead, he is very far ahead. This was also indicative of that. Caps, much more active on the map traditionally when they are playing each other. 74% KP in their games against each other. Faker down at 54. Caps 6 solo kills to Faker's 2, but the most Caps stat ever is that there's 3 ISO deaths for Faker, Caps 12. So he has 3 times the solo kills, but 4 times the ISO deaths, which just really encapsulates the guy.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, that last matchup, really difficult for Galio to play into,
so hard.
at almost every stage of the game, right? The Tristana was such a great pick, so now, with the Ahri in his hands, this is likely to be a little bit more skill-based, one could say, as T1 look to answer here on the other side.
And when we look at Zeus' champ pool so far at this tournament, 8 games of Gwen, 3 games of GP, and then a bunch of other stuff, and I'm sure you can speak to how comfortable he is on a wide array of different champions, but it seems that G2's approach this time around is to actually limit his impact and his comfort towards the top side.
Well, it's really interesting to see both Gwen and GP banned out there by G2. I think that is quite atypical.
I actually like it. I like it a lot because honestly, Zeus is happy on the counter matchup, right?
Yeah, no, and it just makes me wonder, where is Broken Blade going to take us? His most played had actually been the Vladimir, right? But he was using that as an answer to the Gwen. The Gwen is his next most played. That is taken away. Then it's Sion and Gnar, as well as Ornn. Ornn has obviously been banned out, so is he comfortable actually looking towards something like a blind Sion here, trying to play more for the 5v5, especially if G2 want to play towards bot side and try to focus on getting Flacket ahead, which was clearly their game plan last time? It could make sense.
Well, Viego is going to be looked at here. Of course, Viego, Ahri, an extraordinarily popular combination of mid and jungle, something that G2 could certainly play around. But if you look on the other side, these are the most famous champions for both of these players, right? Faker's LeBlanc needs no introduction.
Yep, Sion.
And Ona's Lee Sin's fantastic. And this is exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
The Sion comes in, and honestly, I really like this from G2. Go back to what worked instead of, trying what was not necessarily a composition that they've had as much success with.
And it's the only thing that made sense with the double ban towards top for me, right? Because if you actually wanted to play the Gwen yourself and you're like, maybe I don't really like the GP matchup, you ban one or the other and you take one, right? In this case, banning out both those, which are really strong answers into tanks. And now we have to see, where does Zeus want to take us? Because after Gwen and GP, he's just played one game on a number of different champions, right? He's at the Rumble, the Aurelia, the Jax, the Jace, the Kennen. So, he could do something like Kennen if they want to go for 5v5, just try to have early push and then move towards the 5v5, look to play towards the bot side. If you want to go lane dominant, you're looking more at some of these atypical picks, things that are strong into tanks like a Fiora or even like Vayne top type counters.
And moving away from the top a bit, I want to focus in on the support, mainly because I think the Nautilus pick is very smart here. Not only because it is a very good champion into LeBlanc, typically, so it's a denial away from G2, but now as T1, you also have the freedom to remove a lot of the good answers into Nautilus as well. Renata is something that Targamas did actually play a lot of during playoffs. It was his go-to answer against things like the Nautilus in particular, and I thought that they would even look to remove the Leona as well, but for anyone that knows Targamas, he doesn't really play Leona. It's one of the few supports that he typically does not go towards. Now, does that mean that he can't play it? I would never make that assumption about him, but so far in his pro, at least in the LEC and here at MSI, is something he's gone towards. So instead, they're going to remove the Kai'Sa, which, as I said, I was talking about last game, is one of Flacket's go-tos, and it has been his most comfortable champion here at MSI.
And it's so interesting, because with the Nautilus, I thought they were actually going to leave it up and try to force G2 to ban it, and then they could just go it on 4. But instead, banning it away, taking the Xayah, they really are trying to target Flackhead, push him down. Flackhead, throughout the Rumble stage, he had his struggles, right? On average, down 712 gold at 14. In G2 losses, down on average 1,300 gold in, individually in that matchup. Was almost the entirety of G2's average deficit in their losses, has really struggled. On the other side, while Gumayusi, I think, hasn't performed in the team fights necessarily, his average is 1,128 ahead at 14. So it's a massive disparity between these two players. And I think that's partially why we saw G2 come in last game with the plan to really hardcore focus on getting Flacket ahead, because he's been amazing in team fights when he can get there on even terms.
No, exactly right. And I think a lot of those stats come down to how these two teams play, right? The stat at 15 minutes is certainly something that favors T1 exceptionally with how well they play around the early game before then sometimes dropping the ball a little bit when it comes to mid and late. The Braum is going to come through, though, to round out this composition. Certainly pretty stalwart there towards the bottom side. Is Carrier thinking about locking away the Zillion for Faker? Of course, Faker has played this one many, many times. You can say that about basically every champion.
Well, it would be unless they're doing something really weird because LeBlanc's already locked in, right? So we're looking for Zeus' answer into
the
Sion.
Zillion top lane.
Ooh,
that's Yone.
Okay, it's Yone.
Right.
So this is a Broken Blade pick. This is something that he played a lot, and it was really popular right after Lethal Tempo got some buffs a while ago. People started playing a lot of Yone top. So this is going to be very interesting. If Yone gets ahead, it can be very difficult for some of the tank matchups because you do have high sustained DPS with Lethal Tempo, and you're going in towards shield bow, and you can start to shrug off a lot of their damage. But Yone, one of those really kind of high risk, high reward style champions, if he's put down also, can be pretty useless.
Well, I think one of the great things about a Yone into a tank matchup like this in particular is the expectation is G2 won't play around this lane, right? Normally the Sion gets left in isolation because not only is he a difficult champion to like bully out of lane, but also he's a very difficult champion to dive thanks to his passive and just what he does as a champion. So I would be surprised if Zeus really saw much attention, but when you have a mid-jungle with this much agency on the side of G2, we'll see how much they impact the map, because my expectations are a lot of brawling in the mid-jungle. LeBlanc Lee Sin versus Ari Viego, that is spelling like whoever gets that advantage is going to look to try and snowball on the rest of the map.
And it's going to be really interesting because if T1 cannot put Broken Blade down, the only magic damage that T1 has drafted is LeBlanc, right? You know, that is a burst mid. You're not going to have to build MR on the Sion. It's Lee Sin, Yone topside. If you can get through those first early levels, get towards Tabbies, get towards Frozen Heart, your mythic item, you're going to be really tough to actually take down.
Yeah, every single cloth armor is just going to feel so good for this Sion. Yeah, he's just going to have shirt after shirt after shirt, wearing so many. I hope he's playing Lumberjack Sion. It's not only my favorite skin.
Ooh,
there it is! All right.
That's a dub.
Hell yeah. That's shirt number
it's
one.
All tied up.
Shirt number one's on. We'll see how many more shirts he's going to place on after that. Here we are under the Rift for game number 2. G2 looking to reset against T1. Picking up game number 1, but I don't think that there is a team more tenacious than G2 when it comes to best of 5.
Now, we're all oldies on this desk. We've all been casting and following the scene for a while.
Yeah, a few years.
But there are many viewers that haven't. Okay? And so I want to bring them back to a fun fact about Faker in particular.
How fun. Out of 10.
He does not use skins.
He doesn't.
Right? And this is one. Bear in mind, he has
did
3
once
of
or
them.
twice.
Yeah,
There was,
once or
like,
twice.
once or
There are
twice,
exceptions. But Faker does not use skins, right? And so
Carrier's flash level 1 though, so we're just going to hold it there for a moment. That is going to be the charm hitting, but it doesn't even really matter. Carrier going to get taken down low. The flash from Jankos, but the stun comes in. Carrier's still going to die, but it's going to take a little bit longer. There is the Winter's Bite just to guarantee the assist, and a few extras there for G2 as they answer back.
Absolute madness. T1 just coming out swinging here. Carrier flashing straight in on Caps, and
Hex
even getting
flash value though, right there.
That is crazy, man. You know, and they get the ignite off Faker, of course, but it's both flashes from mid and jungle. They're from G2. This is so worthwhile, I think, for T1.
We talked so much in the draft about this mid-jungle matchup being super important. Now you've gotten the flash out from Caps, so you can look to attack that at level 3 already. The moment that you have all the skills on Faker available, the moment the owner hits that level 3 mark, they can look to just shut down Caps.
Yep, and it's a very volatile matchup anyway, right, between LeBlanc and Ari. This one can certainly go either way, but let's have a look at it again. The absolute insanity here from Carrier flashing level 1.
Yeah, they're all around there and just coming out of fog, flashing in. There's no way Caps was expecting it, and then the chain to follow up. Owner connects through. Yes, Carrier is going to go down, but it's not just the flash off of Caps. It's a flash off of Jankos. It's first blood going on to Owner. The one kind of wrinkle there is that it is going to be an E start for LeBlanc, which is not what you want to have. So you're expecting the push to go towards Caps. I'm not sure what skill he actually leveled, like if he leveled Charm to try to defensively peel for himself or something like that. But assuming he had Q, he should have the push, but of course he doesn't. So it may be that he actually skilled Charm. I didn't get to see.
He did, yeah.
He did, that's why Carrier died, right?
So then, then that is kind of even on all accounts, and it's going to mean Faker has a significant advantage here, and if he could bounce the wave, have that coming out towards him, there is always that potential of killing off Caps.
We'll see how it's going to go. Even as the dust settles as far as kills are concerned, T1 with a little bit extra. that first blood and everything else. But like you were talking about, Summoner Spell is very, very important in this situation. As Jankos, I mean, the Bramble Bat follow him for a while. But Owner's going to get spotted out. Jankos also spotted out as the Sonic Wave will connect. So both of our junglers just checking one another. Gumayushi slowed down there as Targamas is going to stand behind one of the minions, but we don't know whether that's exactly what he wants. Great dredge line is going to come through there from Carrier, but immediately they switch over to Flackid, unable to actually get any kills, but still weakening the G2 bottom lane a lot.
Oh, that was so big, and now Owner coming in here. They are low without subs. They could look for a dive here. He was spotted on that ward you see on the top of your screen, so G2 know it, and Jankos is rushing down here. So they won't go for the dive here. It will just be the reset. If Owner bases too early, they should see Jankos. So they have all info now. So he's going to cancel the recall, make sure that they can fully crash this. But that was very close to going more towards G2 because they were one stack away from proccing the Braum passive. But Gumayushi, was able to get back, and it felt like G2 almost got a little bit over baited in because Gumayushi still had his cleanse. So even if you do proc that, yes, the trade starts going your way a bit more, but I don't think he was really ever in danger of going down.
Huge props to Carrier as well. I think he played that phenomenally, and obviously we sing his praises a lot as a support player, but in that situation, you could see that G2 was looking to posture, try and get the last hit off, and then the moment the Braum decided, okay, that's enough, I'm going to disengage, he immediately hooked him back in, forced him to flash. That also forced the heal out from Flackid, but because he flashed away, Flackid is now left isolated, so what does Carrier do? Immediately turns his attention onto the AD carry, manages to land the passive auto attack, and then all of a sudden this becomes a very advantageous 2v2 for T1. So huge props to Carrier because he is the one that's making this lane very difficult for G2.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things you always have to be so careful about when you're playing against Glacial Augment supports, right? Even if the initial part of the trade goes well for you, if they proc Glacial, you can't really get out very easily. You take so much damage on the retreat, so you have to be very confident that the trade will go well for you when you go in.
Yeah, well, things resetting just a little bit. If we have a look at the Summoner Spells, though, there are just not very many flashes available for G2. Just one there towards the top side. Jankos is going to have his very, very soon. And we'll see whether he's going to be able to affect some change here on this map, because on the other side, T1 have just lost carriers, but he's just got it back up. So that is a lot of playmaking potential. The charm is going to come through onto Faker here, but it's pretty even as far as the health trades, as Caps is trying to trade this one back.
The scary thing, though, with Ignite Advantage being on Faker's side, you always have to worry about that for the potential all-in, especially when Faker hits 6 here. If Caps is getting chunked down, he's got to pay a lot of respect as the Electrocute proc comes back up. That plus Ignite plus 6 does mean there is kill threat. But Jankos here hovering around has not been spotted yet, I don't believe.
And still level 5 for Faker as well.
Do want to give a lot of credit to Jankos here because we talked about this mid-jungle matchup, and after Caps lost his flash, Jankos realized that he needed to hover mid, and we've been seeing him do it a lot. We saw it a lot at level 3, level 4, where he's just making sure that he's in the vicinity so that he can counter gank, make sure cover for Caps, and now that Caps' flash is back up, he's hit level 6, he can now look to spend that attention elsewhere. But of course the downside of that is in the bot exchanges, he hasn't been able to offer that same level of support, so them dropping in that 2v2, it's become harder for Jankos to find opportunities on the map. And Carrier looking for a hook.
He's going to be able to find the hook here onto Flackid. Let's see where the door is going to be enough, as now they're going to get that stun down onto Targamas. The Unbreakable's not there, but Carrier doesn't have a lot of health bar. They are going to back this one out.
So that looked to me like Carrier was in the middle of his passive animation, and then he used the Q to kind of hide the direction of the Q.
The cancels the dark technology of the Nautilus.
And was able to land the hook on the Flackid. So really cool setup there. We just keep singing Carrier's praises, but the setup was good, but the response this time around was stronger for G2. Targamas put himself in a great position. The wall mitigating the feathers from actually going behind Flackid meant that that burst damage from Gumayushi just wasn't there. So G2 in the small exchange ended up coming out on top.
And it is such a strong interaction that Braum does have, because it's not just you're blocking up the autos. As you say, Vedi, the feathers can't get there behind Flackhead, so he can never get 3 in position to root as long as G2 continue to move back, which they did. Now you can see the early Warden's Mail here for Broken Blade. Just going to use the ulti as kind of a secondary TP. This is really how you play a lot of losing matchups as Sion, and it's one of the reasons he's so hard to put down alongside the passive that you talked about earlier, Vedius, where even if you do dive him, he's going to get a lot of that XP in the zombie form. Pick that up. So early Warden's Mail, going to be feeling pretty comfortable unless Faker does get up there. And so far, it's been really kind of mid-lane focused. Both junglers just hovering around here, but neither team making any mistakes. So not much has really been gained from this pressure.
No, another charm is going to connect here, though, from Caps, as Faker mimics his distortion to get a little bit more damage down. Carrier turns up. We're not going to get any stun. So Dust certainly settling, and T1 a slight advantage. With 400 gold, feels like absolutely nothing in this matchup. G2 have come back from far worse than this, so definitely a very different game to what we saw in game one. Kind of exactly what we were hoping for.
And I think the expectation was there'd be a lot more priority around this mid, but now the first Herald is alive. Have a look at the top lane. It is Zeus that has the push for now, but Flacket has joined the rest of his team. T1 leveraging this control ward very well to give themselves good position, but I think G2 is aware. Here comes Zeus.
Yeah, Sonic Wave not going to connect there from Owner, and that's going to mean that Zeus does back away.
Okay.
So G2 are just going to be able to take this, and I like it. T1 not actually opting in for the fight, but they might have one here as the Winter's Bite's going to go wide after Carrier hooks his way out. So T1, once again, going to be absolutely fine, although still feels like we're like a breath away from a fight.
I'm telling you, the skill shots just bend around. They just don't connect with T1 players. Carrier's sidesteps are so great to see. Gumayushi, though, doing exactly what Flacket did last game. Sure, Flacket helped his team secure the Herald, but it was at the cost of 2 plates. T1 not too upset about that, but getting a Herald away from T1 is a very rare thing to do.
Only the second time it's happened between the Rumble stage and now.
It's something that I'm surprised that T1 gave that up so willingly.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't just fight, even if they were going to lose, right?
Exactly.
This is what we were talking about, and I was ready. I was so poised, you know, the play-by-play thing where we like, I'm ready to do the team fighting thing, but it just never happened. T1 baited us in with all of their very aggressive play, and there is a hook, and we're going to start a fight here on the bottom side. Jankos was spotted. Owner is here as well. Winter's Bite once again going to go wide as the Blade Coral is fantastic. The depth charge gets the flash out from Flacket, and Owner just kicks him through. Another stun's going to come down onto Targamas, but he'll be okay for now. But that was some pretty sexy Lee Sin play, I'm not going to lie.
That was clean from Owner. Flacket getting very aggressive. I think just thought he could get a maximum amount of damage out there and then kind of back it up. Blade has ulti. There's potential here. This could be an all-in.
Yeah, Unbound Soul from Zeus, just playing around with all of that extra mobility. Get another knock-up with the Q. It just looks like he's having a great time. There's Zeus on the top side of the map.
Yep, just absolutely chilling up there. But as long as Broken Blade is defending the tower, that's really kind of more of the mark of how this matchup is going. You do expect to be down in farm a little bit when you're blinding a tank. But, you know, if he can continue defending that tower, feeling comfortable here, taps up towards that top side. Ooh, nice buffer.
Still gets the stun. And Zeus is going to flash this one out. So, going to have to use the flash. They're actually looking for the dive. Charm is going to miss, though, as Caps takes about all of the turret shots. But still, they are going to be okay. And Zeus still trying to chase this one out. The low health bars look tasty, but he doesn't have an ult anymore, and no flash.
And the problem is mid lane, right? Because mid lane, you're losing the wave there. Yanko's dropping Herald bot. Faker is going to move down towards bot, and Owner is running down here now. So G2 has got to get out of there.
TP, those TPs are up.
Another hook going to come through. Faker, yes, they know that he's here, but can they actually get out in time as Owner dives on in? They're trying to layer all that CC. The Lee Sin manages to get out, but the Heartbreaker's there to follow. It's a 1-for-1 as Flacket falls down, though, and now Faker is on the hunt, looking for this Braum as the chains connect onto Jankos, but he has another one and ults his way out. So a 1-for-1 here on the bottom side, but the Rift Herald did get a lot of value there. I believe it was 3 plates in the end, as now T1 looking to answer.
T1 can definitely dive this. They have the numbers advantage. They know where Sion is. They know where Caps is. And G2, they're going to disengage because they know the risk is very real. So T1, once again, coming out on top. Huge play from Zeus in the top side of the map. Yeah. Leveraging the minion wave as well, knowing that I think he saw the flash. I think we all saw the flash charms coming through, and he realized, okay, I've just got to get close enough to the minion wave to body block the charm, and then I'll be fine. And that's exactly what he was able to do. Meanwhile, T1's also actually going to get the tower off the back of this after they find another kill onto Flackhead. And the early game, very quickly, is now snowballing in the favor of T1 once more.
Yeah, this one was really close, you know, until these last couple of plays there. G2 go topside, double flash committed. Zeus gets out with his. They're going to look for a repeat gank here now, though. There is no ulti on Broken Blade, so it may just be a bit of coverage, but if Zeus gets aggressive, could be punished.
Yeah,
with Carry and Owner here, though.
He is going to move in. Decent little knock up there, but Broken Blade pretty tanky right now, as Sion is wont to do, but another knock up comes through. Immediately, the Unbound Soul does draw him back, but the Q is going to miss from Owner. And yeah, that's a decent emote timing there from Broken Blade, as he's going to be absolutely fine chilling under the turret.
Carriers just roam timings very clean, ahead of the play. G2 should be able to secure this though, using the smite. And Targamas now a little bit later, following up with the rest of his team. You can see a 4-man stack from G2, but once again, it's It was G2 that tried to force that play. Good charm here from Caps.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Even the Everfrost stun going to come through there as well, as Electrocute's going to be the answer, but it's not enough to even out that trade. Nicely played there from Caps, catching Faker on the rotation. Carrier gonna have to dredge line his way out once again, but he is going to be absolutely fine. Just so much jostling, but as we have a look at the gold once again, it has moved to about 2.5k. As Faker's tidying up this mid lane. And Ona standing on a ward here, looking to try and defend. But this looks so much better for G2, with the fact that Caps is now on a champion with so much more agency at this stage of the game. He is feeling like he's ready to have far more of an impact.
But I think we're seeing some very clear discrepancies. Number one, the tier 1 bot lane is just outperforming G2's bot lane. In game 1, whoa, that was a very close hook. You read the sidestep from Caps, and Caps was forced to ultimate to get away from that. But Carrier is having a monster performance on this Nautilus, and he is a large part of what has been shutting down this G2 bot lane. Jankos has been investing so much resources into covering for Caps that the bot lane has kind of been left isolated in the 2v2, and T1 have leveraged that to punish. And then we saw that window where G2 tried to force something. They tried to force a play bot and top, and neither really went in their favor, which meant that T1 weathered the storm of the aggression while also finding an advantage off the back of it, securing the first tower of the game. So T1 continued to demonstrate why they are considered one of, if not the best early game team in the world. And look at who all that gold is on this time around. Gumayusi was the subject to violence in game 1, but now he is the recipient of plenty of gold.
I mean, he's the subject of violence this whole tournament, you know, finally getting himself some time in the sun. And yeah, it's just, this is one thing that we've been terrified about when it comes to T1 just in general, is the fact that they can just switch carries. There are so many teams that you look at and you're like, oh, they need, you know, for example, Uzi in the past. They need Uzi to get ahead before they can win, things like this. There have been so many star players, but it feels like T1, they can just choose one and they'll be the carry.
Well, and they've done that. I mean, you compare what Gumayusi did for T1 regionally, where he was, you know, near 30% of the team's damage, and then you look at MSI, where he has been underperforming, you know, compared to those very lofty standards that he set for himself. You know, 24% of the team's gold at MSI, only 22% of the team's damage. But as you said, pick another carry, pick a card. And this time, Zeus, 22.5% of the team's gold, almost 30%, 29.8% of the team's damage from Zeus, who has been having an absolute standout performance.
Flash, it's just gonna pop, and the turret might just go down as well. Faker is going to get executed. Oh, no. He did get killed by Caps. He killed the turret. That's what I thought the execution was. That was terrifying. But thankfully, it is Caps that's able to answer that one back. Cute little solo kill there for Faker, though, on the top side before he went down.
And smart to actually have the presence of mind to finish off the tower there. Realize that you're wrapped around on, you are going to go down. But catch here.
Yeah, it's going to be the knock-up onto Carrier. He does have a bit of a shield, and now the rest of the boys are going to turn up. He is going to fall, but can Broken Blade get himself out? He's going to flash, but the safeguard's going to get Owner in there as well. Nice knock-up from the Q from Broken Blade. And the stun comes down from Targamas, but yeah, there's 0 damage between these two as Owner's trying to fight this one out. Caps comes over, though. He's got a lot of damage himself as now Gumayusi throws down the feathers. Claggett finds the Moonlight Vigil as Gumayusi just dives on top of Caps. Don't think that was the right move, as Caps is just going to put him down.
Owner getting way overconfident there. The initial play, he was totally fine, but then going back in again after surviving. Flacket arrives, Caps arrives, and Owner goes very deep, goes down, then Gumayusi blowing summoners and getting killed off. All of a sudden, G2 with some signs of life here.
Yeah, chains are going to connect from Faker, but Targamas has a door, and the door is very powerful, so he's going to be absolutely fine. As, yeah, this is some of the T1 plays that we were seeing
a little bit fast
in a
and
few
loose.
of those more, the more fast and loose games. Exactly, as Cap's going to find a nice charm onto Zeus, looking to try and trade this one back, but he's just not doing enough damage. Cap's just, the ult comes through. Zeus manages to find it. It's traded back in the end.
Oh, that was disgusting from Zeus. The fact that he was able to outplay that, get a 1-for-1, and I think he got the shutdown onto Caps. I'm pretty sure I saw 550 to 350 there. Wow, impressive play from him, once again demonstrating the mechanical prowess that this Tier 1 roster possesses.
I mean, it was just so smart. Caps was basically He throws out the Q, so he flashes behind him, so the Q is not going to hit him on the return damage there to get that trade kill, knowing Caps doesn't have any more ulti charges, doesn't have any more flash, doesn't have his flash up, so he can't actually reposition for that pullback on the Q. Really nicely done by Zeus, but still, it is a trade kill. Broken Blade pushing up here on that top side, getting very tanky, has the earlier Warden's Mail, has the Mythic completed. Let's watch this one more time.
So let's have a look at this. Caps knows that he has everything up. He uses the Everfrost to apply the slow, is able to land the charm, and at this point you think, okay, he's waiting for the shield to disappear, and then he's going to land everything. But then Zeus preemptively goes back with his E, flash knockup, is able to get behind the return of the Q, and is able to find a big pick. Charm lands on the Faker.
Yeah, that's the Q flash. It's Faker going down extraordinarily low. Targamas now going to rotate over as well. Great Winter's Bite as Faker brings his clone over, flashes the wall. Targamas going to try and find the ulti kill, and he'll get it as he just autos Faker to finish him off. I love the emote
A little
too.
tip of the hat there to Faker.
That's a flash for Flash. They will get another kill onto Faker, but it's really important to recognize that while every now and then T1 are dying on side lanes, we've seen Faker now, that's the second time. The rest of T1 is getting so much more on the map because of the numbers that G2 are investing to be able to secure that kill. Look at the top wave. It's being stacked up, ready by Zeus for T1 to receive, and they can start threatening that tier 2. The mid towers already dropped in that last sequence of plays, and it's important to recognize that while G2 are finding picks, finding what seem to be favorable kills, T1 is constantly getting more control over the map. And even though it may sometimes seem that they're making mistakes, ultimately they're the benefactors of every play.
Yeah, I mean, I do think overall that's for sure true, but like, let's be honest, this isn't out of G2's hands by any means. It is.
I mean, this is looking way better than the last game, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they've done a good job of keeping it close, of getting some towers back up their own. You know, they knocked down top. We just saw Broken Blade knock down bot tower as well now. He's on Frozen Heart plus that Iceborne. That is a really tanky sign at this point. Not sure how much health he's gotten from the W passive, but when we click on him, we can actually see that as well. You know, he is going to be really tough to actually knock down. Of course, Gumayushi going to be the one tasked with doing that. Already has the LDR through, so does have a lot of that armor pen available. But, you know, beyond Gumayushi, as far as teamfight goes, they don't have a lot of damage to actually, you know, deal with this Scion. So I think if you can protect Blackhead from Faker, there's opportunities here. If you can avoid Zeus's knockup, if you can avoid Faker assassinating Blackhead, G2 can potentially win these fights.
I respect your guys' optimism. The thing that concerns me, which maybe won't even come to fruition right now, so I'll probably have to bring it up later because it's G2 that have set up around the Drake, but when you lose these 2 towers and you have a tier 1 tower of your own, contesting Drake can be very difficult because you can start pushing in bot, use the bot push to gain control of the jungle, which can then guarantee you a very deep mid push, which makes it very difficult for the opposition to contest Drake. But T1 have said, you know what, we don't care about this Drake, we're actually going to give it up in exchange for control around the top side and damage down onto this top tower. And you can see the vision investment as they're looking for Gumayushi.
Ulti going to come through from Broken Blade. Gumayushi going to try and get out with the Gale Force. Also uses the Feather Storm. It's a lot invested as now Jankos starting this dive. Decent sidestep onto the Heartbreaker, but there are too many buttons G2 has available, and the Xayah is going to fall down. Now T1 will find their way into the fight, but have they got here fast enough? As it's a really nice chain from Faker, but he will pop back. And G2, now can they get out of this one is the question. Oh, just dives into the knockup. The setup was just beautiful from Broken Blade as Faker goes down. Now T1 desperately trying to get out. Good flash from Carrier, but Owner's not going to be so lucky. Charming is Caps as he puts him back towards his outer turret there in the mid lane. So Owner is going to be alive, and yeah, maybe it's Baron on the table.
I think you start it. You just got flash off Owner. You know he has to go back to base. Okay, they're not going to go for it. Caps was moving up, so I thought they might. Instead, they're just going to take the smaller win here, clear out some vision, as T1 does have a lot, but that was huge for G2. Really smart stuff from Broken Blade, priming up the Q, expecting someone would be coming over that wall, whether it was Faker or Owner. There was a lot of ability to do it.
This was the first time this series we have seen T1 fall for the bait. The juicy kills on the side of G2 were a little too tempting, and Broken Blade, he may end up losing his life here, but look, Aphelios is lying in wait behind the corner. Zeus, are you overcommitting here? Broken Blade has the ultimate. Not gonna invest it though. But so far this game, we have seen a lot of the plays. Hang on.
Yeah, that's the ulti as Flacket actually goes back and just says, no, I will leave.
Multiple times this series, we've seen G2 force a play and then T1 respond. And look at how many they're committing into getting a kill. This is something we've seen from G2 a lot this series of like, okay, we don't have much control over the map, so let's just try and force something. And typically, T1 would cross-map somewhere. They would trade somewhere else on the map, but there was nothing for them to trade for. So instead, they chase into a 4v5, knowing that Caps has TP, and they see a bunch of low health bars and think, we can get this kill.
but it ends up falling short.
This is just beautiful.
good.
He has the anticipation. I mean, someone is going to come over the wall, right? You know, it's Lee Sin, or it's LeBlanc, or it's even potentially Zeus there who had the ultimate available. So there's 3 options that someone could have come over. Now also, they're not quite able to finish off Owner. I think they would have gone for Baron for sure if they could have. Does sneak out, and G2 ends up saying, hey, we don't need to flip it. We don't need to go to Baron. Still feeling relatively comfortable in their position in this game. You know, Caps is getting strong. Flathead's on 2 items. Broken Blade is only going to get more and more difficult for T1 to deal with. So I do think, yes, T1 are in the advantage. They have the run on the map, but G2 have a very straightforward composition here with 2 really beefy boys in the front line and some strong carries to protect.
And we've been highlighting it this whole game, right? Faker has been very over-aggressive on this LeBlanc, and the more he gets put behind, you already said it, he is all of their magic damage. There is so much on his shoulders for trying to make sure that their damage profile isn't too skewed, and it will become more and more difficult the further behind he gets.
And he's on Void Staff Merc Treads, right? Like, he's not going as solo AP. You generally want to see Sork Shoes and Shadow Flame, you know, full flat pen to try to one-shot Flacket. But, you know, there's 0 MR on Flacket, 0 MR on Caps, and we have a Void Staff and, you know, on Faker, which means his burst is just going to be lower. Sure, he's going to do higher damage to Sion, who's building some MR now, and to Braum, but, like, that's not who you want to hit, so who cares?
Yeah. Well, T1 now trying to get this push on. It feels like things have slowed down just a little bit as Hexflash comes in, and I bite my tongue. Q connects as well, but it's Targamas. Remember, this guy's pretty tanky. They're still going to go for the fight, but he breaks his stopwatch. Faker now looks for the double to sword, and he'll pick it up. Stand beside me. Not going to be enough.
Targamas' first death of the game could mean a Baron for T1. Really good Hex Flash from Carrier, and the follow-up from T1 meant that G2 was caught off guard. Look, that's 3 members towards the bot side of the map. Broken Blade does have TP. But with the small vision, or small amount of vision rather, that G2 have, they recognize that, you know what? T1's not going to push anything, so that will just be a death. I think that was just the flash burn from Targamas, nothing really invested elsewhere from T1. But I think we're really starting to see some of these mid-game struggles for T1 where they're really good at cross-mapping, they're really good at trading objectives on the map, but when there aren't as many objectives to trade for, it seems that they struggle a little bit to know how they should respond to the aggression, and G2 are relentless in terms of stacking up as a 4-man and looking to try and go for a pick.
Yeah,
try and fight a 2 versus 4.
I mean, I think they were maybe expecting to get more advantages out of the side lanes, and they do have a big CS advantage, but once Sion hits a certain point, you just can't really pressure him much anymore as the Yone, and he's kind of reached that point. So yes, they're getting a CS advantage, but they're not really knocking down towers. And
it's the Baron Force. This is the Baron Force.
Yeah, but it's on vision. They didn't even put down a single pink ward. They're sweeping out the vision now, but it's fully spotted. And T1 quickly going to pull off as they realize that they have been spotted. Gumayushi also skipped IE. He went for a rapid-fire third, which is very atypical. You know, he's got to be high DPS to be able to actually deal with this frontliner.
They're back on it.
But they're just back on it. It feels like, T1 are running out of ideas of how to advance the game state.
With Yone, they will be able to clear it very quickly. G2's jungler is nowhere near, but that is not going down fast enough.
Yep, some decent vision still here for G2 as well as Carrier dives on in. That's a great double knock up, and Caps is immediately taken down. Can there be an answer from G2 though? And Zeus against the double knock up, and Flacket is still absolutely huge, and it's like the flash from Gumayushi. Double kill for Faker in the end. It's Gumayushi still trying to fight Jankos. Moves back towards his teammates. Jankos goes golden, but I just don't think he's going to have the gap closed to lock down this Siren. Gumayushi going ballistic in the team fight. That's the ace from T1, and now they'll secure Baron.
What a flash from Gumayushi. The flash to redirect the feathers there onto Flacket. Absolutely erases him as T1 find the turn. Carrier and Faker deal with Caps, and Gumayushi puts Flacket 6 feet under. They grab the Baron here. T1 get that big advantage they've been looking for.
Great utilization of the Baron this time round. We've been criticizing them this tournament for forcing it and not being able to find a good fight, but they're able to create this flank with Carrier and Faker, and even though Carrier gets spotted, he doesn't care. Fully commits onto Caps. He gets one shot from the fight, and at this point you think it's over, but then things start looking a little bit closer as Flacket and Jankos get that return kill.
Absolutely, and then Flacket here, they're going deep onto Gumayushi. You can see the Gale Force forward to get behind him for the feather pull, but then Gumayushi recognizes it, flash E, pulls it through, erases him. Flacket unable to flash in time to react to that. and it started to look close until you realize Faker is still full health, still hanging around. T1 playing that very well. The CC chain from Keria, unreal. Flash over the wall, passive auto, into hook. The ulti was already buffered there. Everything is overlapped. Caps never got to play his character. There was nothing he could do from that initial engage from Keria, and that makes it so Faker cannot possibly miss any of his skill shots. It's just a beautiful turn.
Yeah. We've said it before. We're going to keep saying it. Kerry's damn good at League of Legends.
He's pretty good.
He is. He hit the early game from his map movements in terms of being able to set up that play was really good, and huge props to T1 because, as we mentioned, their Baron has been their biggest criticism. We did see them struggle in terms of what to do in the mid game, but that is a clear evolution, a great utilization of the Baron to find a good team fight to get themselves in a winning position to go 2-0 up in this series.
Yeah, and it was also a fantastic moment for Gumayusi as well because we've been very critical of him throughout this whole tournament, and in that moment, that was about as well as you could have possibly played that, right? Never stopped autoing, was always making sure that he got the most damage down possible. So really good to see that he's really stepping up here when it counts most, trying to get T1 to match point in this series.
And it becomes so terrifying, to look at a team like T1 and say, they've performed this well with someone, not at their peak level, right? And if Gumayusi is reaching that level, T1 becomes incredibly frightening. They become that team that was promised, that undefeated monster coming out of the LCK that everyone had as favorites, for this event. And everyone who's kind of shifted quite a lot on who they thought was favorites. At first it was T1, then it was G2, now it's RNG, and
well, Faker could get slowed down here. Oh man, Cap's still committing to it, but Faker's just gonna answer back. Too many mates in that brush alongside him, and Caps goes too deep.
The locket from Keria again. This man just does it so many times. He refuses to let this T1 lose.
Yanko's
and now
gonna
they're
get
diving.
knocked up. That's a dredge line from Carrier as well. As Gumayusi's gonna sidestep the ulti. Yanko's gonna get taken down as Broken Blade will find the Zyre in the back line. He's looking for the knockup, but the Featherstorm is going to be there. The flash out from the Scion. He's going to be safe, but what's he going to do to stop his base from being torn to shreds as this mid inhibitor is going to go down? The top lane has been prepared earlier as well. As Zeus is going to tank up the turret for just a little while longer, but 2 inhibs. Click of a finger, and now it's a 12,000 gold lead from T1.
Yeah, Cap's about to respawn, so T1 getting out of there, and unfortunately it looks like there's no TP wards, so they can't even go for a long chase and have Caps join on the TP play. Faker went back to base to actually deal with Broken Blade, but Broken Blade, of course, teleported to join the team. So Faker just pushing out bot, Caps moving down here, and Caps very clearly pushing, trying to find an outplay, knowing his team is behind. That's why he's diving so deep for that attempted kill here onto Faker. He sees this shutdown. He sees the potential to find this play, finding the Everfrost slow. The charm just not quite connecting. It actually gets blocked, and then there it is.
It's relevant. Oh my
It is the locket from Keria saving Faker there. Perfect timing from him. And so close to connecting that charm, just barely. Faker moving his clone in the way to actually block that out. The slimmest of margins, and that would have been, nearly 1,000 gold going G2's ways. It's 650, now 700 shutdown on Faker.
It would have slowed the whole game down as well. Removing that pressure from mid, eliminating that Baron. If Caps was able to find that, it's just, as we said, Kerry's damn good at League of Legends, and he makes that play happen once again. So huge props, T1 in a commanding position right now. The lead is 10k gold.
Well,
they may be down in Dragons, but they don't care.
Yep, that is not this time for Broken Blade. Not going to be able to quite find it as T1 are going to slink into the darkness once again. There is an open inhibitor on the top side of the map. You can see that Zeus is pushing towards that one in the mid lane. Ona making his way down, and the 3 for T1. They try and break open this last remaining inhibitor turret on the bottom side. Faker dives in. Targamas puts up the door as Yankos not going to find the stun. Faker is so slippery on this champion. Is now the ulti for... No. It's just the Unbound Soul, just finding Q after Q. Is Zeus there, as the picture-in-picture shows us. In the meantime, though, we're looking for something. Decent stun, but the buffer of the dredge line is going to be there. Yet Zeus was thinking about his opportunity to be T1. Just splitting them, and now Keria dives on forward. Caps is going to go golden as Broken Blade's just trying to keep them busy, but it's just not going to do anything. Oh my goodness, Ona picks up a kill with his Gore Drinker of all things, and now, yeah, that's the direction you probably want to go as T1 are looking to take down these Nexus turrets in game number 2, and things in the Rumble stage looked pretty close, but this series is starting to definitely look the opposite of that, as now onto the fountain goes T1. They'll take down the Nexus. This isn't looking close, gentlemen.
T1
once again prove their growth and evolution in such a short space of time. They are very dominant in the early game, and we saw some of their mid-game weaknesses in terms of being able to cross-match, sometimes getting a little bit too caught up in the fight, but they very quickly adjusted, they reset themselves, and they played that Baron beautifully into a very quick execution to shut down G2. T1 continue to improve, continue to get better, and they're looking to secure this 3-0 and get their much-wanted revenge against G2.
And now it is T1 and it is Faker, 1 game away from his first international finals since 2017. He's the undisputed greatest player of all time, but really he built that legacy largely in 2017 and prior, right? He has been one of the best players since, but he has not been definitively the best. And that is how he built his reputation. That is how he built his career. And it is incredible to see a man this far into his career now, 1 step away from reaching that final stage again. It gives you chills just thinking about it.
It does. 3-time world champions wanting to try and at least have a chance of making it 3 times MSI champions as well. But for this year's MSI, we asked the teams to pick 4 tracks that they think could be their team's anthem, and then asked you, the fans, to vote on the winner. Here's the team anthem you selected for G2 Esports, Our Way by G2, Tina Guo and Luke Holland. Make sure to check out the official LOL playlist on Spotify before we come back with another look at the Game 2 between T1 and G2.
One team of Targamas low. Stopwatch. Here's Broken Blade. Can he win the 1v4? Going in for damage. Could be the turnaround. Flackett's alive. Shield looks good. And Bay will fall. G2 own the map.
Zeus onto Bin. Yep. Holy moly. In the midst of the fight, Zeus is there, diving on towards Gala. Way already down. Ming short to follow. The Inferno coming out. T1 advancing.
I woke up to the morning sky first. Baby blue, just like we rehearsed. Go riders, go right, gasoline lighters, more fire. Skid tires, blow up dynamite, need more wires. Noise shy, to the origami wine, and join like right on time. I'm gonna come under the pure water. Set it off like this, set it off like set it off like this, set it off like set it off like this, set it off like set it off like this. Burn it up, burn it up. Take notes.
Red Bull gives you wings. Red Bull gives you wings.
Hey, say something funny.
What are you doing?
All of our streaming subscriptions were starting to add up, so I decided to cut back, and now you're my guy, so play better.
Hold up. You don't have to sacrifice. State Farm has options like combining home and auto, so you get a rate that fits your budget.
Keep talking, Jake from State Farm.
Hey, everyone. Jake here.
Subscribe. Unsubscribe.
What? I thought I was your guy.
Not anymore. He's my guy.
Whatever. For surprisingly great rates that fit any budget, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or click to get a quote today.
The magic of time begins for you. At your fingertips, time blooms and unfolds beyond boundaries. This is a city born to be with you. Busan.
KDA, should we show them how we do it every day? Kali that girl, Kali go girl, Kali gon' stop. Kali gon' skirt, Kali got a job, Kali got a work. 뜨거워 언제나 don't get burned. 넘쳐 흘러물 than a buffet. 죽여주잖아 like a buffet. 누가 감히 on my outfit. 이건 문 열지 마, that's a rock day. I'm giving you more cause I'm greater than. 필요 없는 시험들 다 뿐이미. But all of my numbers are talking bang. 부루마법 message monopoly. 눈종이 돈이나 real money 필요 없대. 너네들이 만든 돈들 go get it, go get it, go get it. The mission 눈을 못 떼, 못 떼. 그래 너도 get it cause I got it different. All I ever know is life upon the throne. 시작하면 끝을 보는 거야. You want more? No, I got it so deep down. You look like you could use some more. No, I got it, never running low. Yeah, I got it more than enough, set it up and away. You know I got it like bum bum, blow your mind. Never giving less, and it's how it'll stay. You know I got it like all day, all the time. When I go, it's for gold, get it cool, but I'm cold. I don't fit in a mold, I'm a rebel. I don't do what you say, making moves. I don't wait while I smile in your face. I got different DNA. What's higher than the top? That's me. Come take a look before falling on my feet. 조용히 몸이 숙여봐. So take a look, 나를 기억해, queen. All I ever know is life upon the throne. 시작하면 끝을 보는 거야. You want more? No, I got it so deep down. You look like you could use some more. No, I got it, never running low. Yeah, I got it more than enough, set it up and away. You know I got it like bum bum, blow your mind. Never giving less, and it's how it'll stay. You know I got it like all day, all the time. Way out, 感觉犹如海浪的味道，不断往前，oh you'll never way down. This is how I do it every day. Wow, wow. 这一路上的奇迹都记住了你的每一个瞬间，无比的耀眼。I know you want some more.
Ready to fire, ready or not, we letting it climb.
Hello and welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk, where they've brought out the emotional support couch for Dracos here. Don't worry, buddy. I got you.
I feel so lost.
It's gonna be all right.
I just keep wondering how T1 keep getting away with such good drafts.
Yeah, it's a good question, to say the least. Game one, you were the one who called out the LeBlanc was banned, left open in game number 2. Faker is going to go for it, entering this game 45-10 all-time. On it, exits 46-10.
Now I'm convinced he watches the English broadcast, because we came in, and again, it's like everything we said in the Mercedes-Benz future match was just like, no.
No.
No, sorry, I am still the center of attention. Like, it was cool. I gave Zeus and Guma their chance, but no, it's back to being the Faker show now. Thank you.
I mean, for me, the story of this game was actually Carrier. Also, Zeus, who was having his first career Yone game, for people that didn't know, and just speaks to the flexibility that he also brings this team in draft as opposed to last year's T1
Love
team.
the Carrier call out, because level 1. He goes to the mid lane. He says, we got Faker LeBlanc. We got to set it up now in the right way. And he does just that against Capsazari.
Dash, you're familiar with the Nautilus level
Run it down,
this is all we see in LCS, you know?
And I love the way that T would have been doing this, right? Because we all talked about at the start of this, oh yeah, we need strong mid jungle. We need something that can try and work with Caps. But when they end up having these plays in mid lane that burn the flash early off of Caps, suddenly you can't play aggressive there. And T would have been putting so much pressure into this bottom lane, as you're seeing on your screen. It means that Jankos has to be here. So you don't actually get Jankos and Caps linking up in the way you traditionally think of for G2, because T1 are running amok in the bottom lane. And my God, that kick was spectacular.
And I think the thing here, really the struggle in draft this time around is the fact that Flack had felt like he had to play Aphelios. When you already see the first 3 champions locked in being Lee Sin, Nautilus, LeBlanc, there is nowhere you can go that you will survive. Your Braum gets one chance to peel you on the slowest ability in the game, and you can see in so many of these clips, there's just no room for him to play. Yeah, Jankos is strong, he's ahead of the clock, but it's so hard for G2 to get anything done.
Yeah, and I mean, I do want to bring it back to Carrier, because I feel like if you're not familiar with him, we haven't seen like his apex at this event, right? But like when I think of him, watching him in LCK, I think of this like super aggressive, like Tom Kench play, Nautilus. T1 is just so good when he's engaging and the rest of the team can follow up. Owner on Lee Sin is also something I want to call out because initially T1 kind of shied away from that pick. Maybe they weren't used to it on the high ping, but now that he's a lot more comfortable, it's just a champion he's so comfortable with, and with those two able to control fights, it's just amazing.
T1 off to the races, but as we know, every second counts. And thanks to the reliable Cisco network, Zeus not only escapes the 2v1 top lane gank, but later gets the 1v1 revenge kill against Caps as well. It's a twofer here in our Cisco play.
And look, this is just a fantastic display of mastery on the champion, especially for a first game. Again, you are unstoppable in that ultimate animation. You cannot be interrupted. So yes, he's still technically stunned, but he manages to get distance, quick flash on the way out, some fancy feed to end it. Overall, just again, representation that he knows the champion, then he's comfortable to push his limits. Further exemplified here as we go into the second clip, where this man is clearly watched enough Demon Slayer to master water breathing, because he's absolutely untouchable. Dodges through, Caps gets good damage, but the disjoint here, the only questionable decision from Caps is he throws out the Q a little bit early, potentially missing damage, but full confidence here in the limitations of this pick. Anyone who's played against a fed Yone knows this misery, and Zeus is doing it to perfection.
And I'll give it to Caps. That was a shutdown. So he comes out ahead on the play, but it was still a very cool display of mastery, as we said, in his first professional game of Yone on the stage. Zeus, as much as Faker is going to try and direct all the eyes to the mid lane, he's given people a couple reasons to kind of peek to the sides every once in a while.
Yeah, I think he's just been absolutely insane. And I love the fact that we're getting to see what Zeus is capable of on these like international stages, because obviously rookie coming onto the international stage, we're kind of going, hey, look, you know, how does he end up faring up against some of the top teams that we have at this tournament? And honestly, he's been the best top laner that we've seen all tournament long. And I'm very excited to see that he has these kind of cool picks in his back pocket that he can bring out and feel comfortable just popping the hell off against these players.
And that's the flexibility he brings to this team, right? Because previously, you know, Kana was in, and I know Chronicler has talked about this so many times, but the flexibility and his understanding of what he can do with his champions, and then also where the enemy jungler is just so strong, especially for a rookie. And even when we were talking about like, oh, you know, T1 are struggling in these single games, I think Zeus was consistently the top performer for this team.
And I think the big thing for me is that the number one question for T1 coming into this was one, draft preparedness, which we've now seen is fantastic. And on top of that, individual player performance, because Zeus got better over the course of the Rumble stage, but that first game against G2 made a lot of individual mistakes. Guma, similar story. Both these players absolutely, well, not completely flawless, but significantly better than what we saw in Rumble, and that is a terrifying prospect.
One final thing I want to take a look at, just kind of to set up how difficult this comeback is going to be for G2 to mount, is of course T1 around the Baron. One of our biggest points of criticism for the team all throughout the tournament, and this time around Dagda, very clear from their setup. They have the intention from start to finish to turn this, and they do it well.
Yeah, especially when you see Kerry and Ari on the side. But I love this from Flacket, right? You think, oh, I'm going to bypass everything. I'm going to be totally safe. He even has the flash in this scenario, so he's like, I'm completely out of this scot-free. And you get that phenomenal flash coming through from Gumayushi. She sets it up beautifully. And this has kind of been the story of this, is that we're actually starting to see the members of T1 that we've been waiting for a while to actually come to the main stage, actually stepping up. With Gumayushi having these big performances, Keria looking immaculate, and now we're getting Zeus as well. It feels like across the board, we're getting that terrifying T1 that we got in LCK.
Yeah, by all accounts, this is very much looking like T1 dominance and moving very quickly towards a possible straight-up clean sweep. But I do want to talk about how G2 comes back. There are a couple glimmers of hope throughout this game, a couple moments where T1 oversteps, and G2, of all teams, I think is uniquely suited to taking advantage of teams that do overstep.
I mean, this is the thing we've seen from T1 across this entire tournament. They literally cannot help themselves. They want to fight at all times. Now, I think they played on that expectation in the previous Baron exchange. G2 maybe expected them to just be fully committing for that, but T1 will get over-aggressive. I can't entirely say why, because a lot of these fights are just objectively bad choices. But, why are you doing they're that? Going. I feel like Faker is Thomas Shelby, like, no fighting, no fighting, no fighting, but the boys are out here, and they're just going for it. And look, in games where they have the tools to win the fights, where they fight around the Baron like we've seen in these first two games, it's been fantastic. It's been super good. But that tendency to make mistakes is still there.
Yo, also, highlight friggin' play right here. Oh my God. The timing and the prediction on Faker coming over the wall by BB. You love to see it. That kind of ingenuity is the stuff that they're going to have to continue to bring out on the Rift in order to take down a formidable T1.
Yeah, I mean, from the get-go, it actually looked like, oh, this was heavy T1 favor, but we got G2 starting to fight back in that mid-game, right? And I think there's a couple things that I want to see them try and like fix so they're having a bit of an easier time in the early stages, like putting higher priority on the AD carries in draft. I think if you can get the earlier like Kaisa or something like that for Flacket, it feels like then he's actually got a little bit more mobility, a little bit more of his self-peel tools that he can then provide himself that bit of safety in the bot side.
All right, well, it is do or die now. It's now or never for G2 Esports to start an incredible reverse sweep. Can they take the first of 3 steps? Atlas, back over to you.
Thank you very much, analysts. Fantastic analysis on the day thus far. We'll see whether this is going to be the last day or whether reverse sweepage is going to be coming. I don't think that's a word, but
it is now.
It is now, and I'll get to say it again if it is actually going to come true.
Well, when we think about G2 and best of fives, this year they've been undefeated. Well, that's not true. They did lose to Fnatic, and then they went undefeated.
In the games that they won, they did win them all.
Yes, exactly.
In all of the games they won, they were undefeated.
And
That's still the case.
It's one of those things where I kind of looked at the player camps of what G2 is experiencing, and you can really see that pressure starting to mount, in particular on players like Flacket. Like, he is still a rookie. This is a lot of pressure on his shoulders because it's not just him playing in his first international semi-final. It's the weight and responsibility of G2 versus T1. And anyone that's been a fan of League of Legends knows about this rivalry that has been building over the years. And I can imagine that pressure is really starting to weigh on his shoulders. So we'll see if he can step up and mount up in what will be a very difficult task to overcome.
Absolutely. I mean, I think even for Caps, you know, he obviously has an incredible amount of experience. He's not one to crack under pressure, but I would think that there's so much pressure on him to be that spark plug for the team, right? He is the guy that everyone is kind of expecting to be the difference for G2. When G2 are at their best, it is because Caps is enabling them. Early Nocturne feels like we might be getting dive, we might be getting aggressive here.
Yeah, I really like it because this has been something consistently banned on both sides of this matchup thus far, so certainly feeling like a big priority pick from Jankos, an opportunity for a Twisted Fate to come in as well. You know, the turn the lights on, turn the lights off composition. I very much like that. It's going to be Xayah, certainly sticking with comfort here on T1's side, and with 2 games in the bank, you can pretty happily just play with what's worked thus far. They're not forced to make any adjustments just yet. But we'll see what the priority is going to be for the second round of picks. As VA goes up, something like that. If Owner wants to go there, we'll see what he's thinking.
And I was going to say that the moment you see dive, the Xayah just makes so much sense, right? Not only has it worked so very well, but it's something that we've seen consistently work well as an answer to lots of champions jumping on my base. So with the Leafs in there, you also have more disengage from T1. And for me, I think that we're just seeing a lot of skill expression. Like we talked about at the beginning of game 1, but things like Xayah, things like Lee Sin, it gives you so much agency to be able to make outplays. And I think T1 is feeling very comfortable with what they've got.
And this is the first time Orin has actually been left up. They banned out the Ahri this time around because Caps, yes, his scoreline wasn't as impressive, but he was really having some great moments in that last game, so they weren't willing to give that over. And now MF, Orin, Nocturne, that is a lot of engage. That is a lot of dive. To really look to fight. I wonder, would they go Renata again? Because Renata was their answer to what was an early kind of dive-style composition from G2. First time around, they do in fact lock it in. I love this as a pick. Xayah plus Renata has to be one of, if not the best duos in bot lane at answering dive. You dive in on the Xayah, into the Blade Caller, into that ultimate, and then you have the Renata ultimate flying through as well that disrupts you. And it's really difficult for MF because though it travels slowly, it has great range and can actually reach the MF from pretty much outside of MF's ult range.
I was going to say it also means that T1 don't have to ban Nautilus if they don't want to, because we've seen Renata has been used consistently across the globe as an answer into the champion. So they can get rid of some of the other more nuance. They can ban away the Rakan. I think they can consider the Pike as well if they considered it a problem. Maybe they don't. After the first game, maybe they think that it's perfectly fine, but they can actually choose to leave the Nautilus open, which while offering a lot of crowd control, won't have that say, will give them still a strong 2v2 matchup.
Yeah, and the Yone is going to be banned away here. A lot of respect for the first time that Xayah's picked up that champion. And of course, no Rakan is going to happen. If Xayah can't have Rakan, no one can, I guess is the thought, is Nautilus will be safety banned anyway.
Could be Gnar again. Gnar was their top lane ban last time when they wanted to go blind tank. You know, that is kind of just like a standard option. That's an amazing matchup against Orin. But I'm really curious to see Xayah again being pushed further kind of down the pool here does he have a really aggressive pick? Aatrox is also something that's just super popular that you can use as an answer. This was really popular in NA. Jace is fine as well.
I
Gnar
feel like
left
Jace
up,
has
though,
not
and
the greatest of matchups into the Ornn specifically, but
it is Gnar. Yep.
Yeah.
So they leave up the Gnar. Like last time around, they did ban that as the top laner. This time, more worried about the Kennen, which is a little bit interesting. And it is going to be Gnar, so we'll have to see how he can actually handle that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that Zeus is very, very comfortable on. He debuted on this champion, had an extraordinary performance in his first game. This is when we're like, oh man, Canna, watch out for your position. And then Zeus had a few less inspiring games after that, last year, of course, in 2021, before he found a lot of stability. But this is certainly something that he's very, very comfortable on, especially into the Ornn matchup. As Zoe, another big pick for this tournament, is going to come through. I think it was Caps that decided to go with this one first here at MSI.
Yeah, he used it as an answer, I think, into Zhao, who I forget exactly what
I think it was
the matchup
Ari,
was,
right?
Yeah. But it was something along those lines. In any case, the Pyke looks to be coming out once more. The front line primarily is going to be in the top side of the map. As I say that, a quick pivot to give them a little bit more agency in the 2 versus 2, a little bit more range and a little bit more prowess, along with the shielding and the utility that Karma provides. It offers a little bit more scaling towards the side of G2 as well. The big question is, how will Faker now round out this draft? A lot of mobility on the side of Tier 1. They have a little bit of an engage with Gnar, but their primary goal is counter-engage here. So how will they round things out?
The Akali is what they're considering right now, and he will lock it in. Okay. It's the classic Akali Lee Sin combination, having them on the same team, certainly something that everyone
classic?
I mean, it is in the LCK. We love just picking Lee Sin and Akali together. No matter how things have changed with Vision and Shrouds and things like that, it's still something that we love pairing together, and Faker has loved this champion as well. But this is feeling like a bit of a flex into Zoe, because this could be difficult, especially early.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he can actually play that out. A lot of these range matchups can be difficult in the early levels for Akali, but you go into second win, you start D-Shield, you really just try to sustain and kind of get your farm. I'm super interested, though, how G2's bottom lane goes, because I think it has to go well or it's going to be really bad. And I do think they have a lot of power here, especially they could even go double Comet here if they want. You start MF plus Q with Comet on Karma. You get the slowdown. It makes it very difficult to actually dodge that Karma poke, but we'll see how heavily they want to index into early laning.
I will say of all 3 drafts, this one is probably my least favorite from T1. The Akali, I'm gonna trust Faker, right? He knows more than me about the mid lane matchup.
Guy.
Yeah, and in terms of the matchup, in terms of what he sees, I'm gonna default to trust here because there's no reason to question him. It's more like when I look at the comp in its entirety, I don't see how this T1 comp functions without the enemy engaging onto them. And the thing is, while Nocturne is typically dive, you have Zoe, you have MF's ulti, you have Ornn's ult can be used as a ranged engaged as well. Like, there's actually a lot of distance that they can use, which I don't think T1 have many tools to close that gap outside of a good Lee Sin flank or a Gnar flank. So I am a little concerned with the options that T1 will have, and they're very reliant on G2 kind of coming into them and being the proactive team.
And I will say, because T1 is such an early game team, and so early game dominant, if you get lead, it's very easy to be first to the objective and the opponents have to come to you.
True.
Right? So I think if you're depending on winning your lanes, well, T1's a pretty good team to be able to do that. And as far as the Akali pick, in my eyes, there's just a lot of squishy members over on G2.
Sure.
Zoe, MF, as well as the Karma, all very squishy, and it is actually going to be Comet MF. So I was thinking they might go towards this. It's super lane focused. You start Comet, you start E. It is going to be Airy and Exhaust because there's an Akali. I think you just have to.
I agree.
So you can't go Ignite. So it's not full offense, which would have been Comet on Karma as well, and Ignite. But this is a very strong 2v2. G2 should have a really good time in this 2v2, and we'll see if they can really make the most of that.
Yeah, and it's also fantastic because this is a game where G2, it's not just an even matchup in the mid lane, it's a very, very Caps-sided matchup as far as the early stages of the game. So being able to play around that bottom side won't have Faker just looming ever present with that threat. It will be more Caps being able to make his way down. And he does have the Ignite there as well. Not going to exactly be able to teleport, but will have a lot more power on those roams as well. So Faker going to move back here towards the mid lane as we get this laning started. We'll see how T1 is going to go. One of the really cool things about this T1 comp, I want to say, I agree that it's not been their best so far in this best of 5. But if you get a Gnar into the wall and a perfect execution layered across, that is going to feel fantastic.
I mean, for sure. And I very much agree with Zale that when you're an Akali and you look at those champions across the board, you think,
I can kill them.
I can kill all of them. Yes, exactly. And all you need is one good flank, and we've seen how great T1 is at getting that vision control, setting up for these objectives. So, again, I'm always going to default to trust when it comes to Faker. I'm just excited to see how he actually makes this execution work. The flash comes in.
Handshake, yeah. Targamas already burning down. Does have the Blade Caller, does Gumayusi, but he's not going to be able to actually lock down any kills or anything like that, but certainly sending a message in the early game. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, they get the push here early on, and they're just straight up hitting more of their skill shots, right? You know, Targamas hasn't been able to connect with as many of the Qs. They get the push here. Jankos, they're not going to expect this. A wraparound without even having his red buff here.
Absolutely no vision, but Kerry is going to spot him. Gumayusi now trying to walk this one out. The flash out of the Duskbringer. Okay. Gumayusi is going to now not have that escape option as this lane continues, so expect a little bit less aggression from T1 down here.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have to at least have eyes on where the G2 members are, Jankos in particular here, because he could look for some sort of a repeat play, but you know, T1's bot lane getting very aggressive here, trying to play it in the face of their opponents. Really, you want to have the push when you're playing this type of a combo because Karma under her tower is so easy to actually deal with. But when you are getting pushed in, it becomes very difficult for the enemy AD to dodge your Qs because you know when they're going to step forward for the last hit. You throw the Mantra Q out, it becomes almost impossible, plus the slow there from MF. But if you are getting shoved in, it's just so much easier to kind of stand with the minions between you and the Karma. And Flakka and Targamas are going to struggle a lot more as a result.
I will say, though, that in terms of the early laning phase, you also have Exhaust Cleanse versus Heal Ignite. So this is probably one of the reasons why G2's bot lane is also quite hesitant to try and go for a hard contest, because they also know at level 2, as we already saw, the hard crowd control that Carrier can provide is something that can be problematic. So I understand why they're showcasing a little bit more respect, and I imagine that after their first reset, that's where we'll start to see a lot more of that poke and aggression come through.
Yeah, exactly right. But there is a slight pause, ladies and gentlemen. We are investigating. We don't have any information for you just yet. However,
Scare Prize!
Scare Prize, everyone! Don't forget to grab your exclusive Scare Prize Prime Gaming emote. It's free, it's cool, and you can strut your stuff while you flash in and turn a fight.
And you can do it right now.
You can.
Supports. You can just click that little button,
Precisely.
Go claim.
That's the perfect timing for this, and that's why it's the first time that we've thrown it up, because everything's been so extraordinarily intense thus far in the series, and thankfully now we do have a little bit of breathing room as things going much better for G2 in this game. And I feel like we've been saying that over and over again as the series goes on.
It wasn't a high bar.
You're a minute in and you're like, I already like what I'm seeing.
No one's dead.
Nexus is alive. All right.
Yeah, I do agree that Game 2 is actually very close, and G2 was in a winnable position. It just came down to a single really well-played fight from T1 around the Baron that allowed them to swing in their favor. And ultimately, at this level of play, that is what can decide games, like a single fight, a single play. The consistencies I've seen so far in this series is, number one, T1's bot lane have been absolutely dominant. Just straight up in the 2v2 there. In game 1, we saw G2 attack that lane a lot, but even then, they were able to weather the storm a lot. I think Zeus has been in a lot of favorable matchups and has taken advantage of those favorable matchups very well. I think where we've seen most of the contest has actually been in this med matchup, and even though Caps hasn't been on the winning side, to his credit, he has been going toe-to-toe and has been playing very well in the likes of Faker's opposition, and he's been doing what he can with the tools that he does have. I think the only person that we haven't really seen that same level of impact from is Jankos, because typically when we think back to the playoffs run in the LEC, it was him making these early game plays happen. You talked about it, level 2 ganks, level 3 ganks. He was finding a lot of kills, not
all the time
snowballing, but it was just the odd kill here or there that would give G2 that extra bit of agency to control their lane a little bit more, mitigate the enemy's ability to roam, and so far, we haven't really been able to see him find a lot of success in terms of those early plays. And I'm not going to sit there and say that's entirely his fault, because we have seen the bot lane struggling a little bit. Caps lost his flash at level 1 last game, and so he hasn't really been set up for success either. But his ability to impact the early game has not been seen so far in this series.
Absolutely. Just a little bit of an update here. League officials are investigating. There's an issue with Gumayushi's peripherals. We will give you some more info as soon as we do have that, but hopefully
having a keyboard and mouse working is generally a good thing to have for League of Legends.
Unless you're on G2's side. Then you do not want Gumayusi to have this.
I was going to say, well, wait, they also need those things.
They just don't want Gumayusi to have this.
Yeah, they definitely don't. Not necessarily my favorite pause. Us in the LCK have had a few that have been absolutely fantastic.
Wait,
but
they
this
have
is just what do you mean?
You've had enjoyable pauses?
Yes, we have. We had the crazy skin issue. Which is the
sometimes it's
player
a funny pause.
Crazy
That's actually
had
true. I'm
a
with him.
skin that didn't work very well, so we had to change the skin, and it came up crazy skin issue.
Yeah.
It was absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
We had the very famous toilet issue as well.
Yeah.
This is peripheral issue.
Some of my
less fun.
favorite pauses in NA were actually back in the Spill Scarin days. Spen Scarin seemed to have a habit of always spilling water on the...
And that's when you introduced the sippy cups, right?
Yeah. So using sippy cups. And then I think one time the sippy cup even got spilled.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it was always hilarious because it came this pattern. Whereas every time there were pauses, you're like, was it a spill?
Yeah,
and then
not
the camera would zoom in on the player. They're looking all shamefaced, like, oh no. They see it. They're trying to dry the keyboard as fast as possible.
Man, that actually survived for such a long time. The spilling water meme.
Yeah.
That was just that
Spill
took a
Scarin
long...
is a good one. It's a classic.
It's definitely very, very good. It is it's taking a little bit of a while just to make sure that we have Gumushi with everything working absolutely perfectly. We heard some G2 chanting in a Busan crowd, which I think
Capstad, wasn't it?
That's more from Capstad, more impressive than a salmon swimming up a waterfall, I think, in my opinion, based on just how incredibly one-sided that crowd would be.
That, Korea does have a lot of G2 fans.
A lot, actually. As far as any other team, any non-Korean team, I think G2 has the most fans.
But T1, though.
Korea.
Yeah, I mean...
But it's T1.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, even Europe has a lot of T1 fans.
Everywhere in the world has a lot of T1 fans. That's the thing.
Earth, I think, has a lot of T1 fans.
Generally, people enjoy watching them play League of Legends. And why would you not?
And that's why it's so exciting, right? Because this team has so much history. And of course, I don't want to take away from their accomplishments over the last 5 years, but again, they built their dynasty, by just dominating, right? By being unassailed, by winning multiple world championships, multiple MSIs here. And they are now tied with RNG. Both have two. G2 obviously looking to match that mark. They have their one title here. But T1 would love to pull ahead and grab another international title for the first time in 5 years. It was back in 2017 MSI, the last time they actually won an international title, and it was against G2, who they were able to take down there. These two teams have just had so much history. It was coming into the series, it was 11-10 for T1 all time. Of course, the Caps record, much more favorable for him. But now, you add a couple more wins for T1. They're trying to kind of forge forward with what is a brand new, T1, right? It is not the T1 of old. It was fun to go back and look at, last time they won, it was Huni in the top lane, right? Playing for T1. It was, Pina and Blank. It was Wolf and Bang down in the bot lane, right? Like, this is just such a different era that a lot of modern T1 fans probably never even watched, back then. Yeah. And this team just was so impossible to beat for so many years that it was like not just about them making it, it was just a foregone conclusion that they were going to win. You just couldn't do anything about it.
The inevitability of if T1 then SKT was something that I think so many of us that watched back then 100% remember. It's like they load onto the Rift and you're like, well, I'll go make a cup of tea.
And what I think is also crazy about T1 is how many stories they've kind of started for the teams, right? Like a lot of rivalries have been built up. But what I think
Dumbledore, for example.
Right. What I think is very unique about G2 is it feels as though, at least for many Western fans, and I can speak as a European fan, that like to have T1 consider G2 to be their rival internationally and someone that they want to beat is like, that's cool. Yeah,
it's actually a huge shout out. As just to let you guys know, we have sorted this one out. The issue is resolved, and so Gumushi is all sorted, mouse and keyboard all working, and we're just completing some checks to get into the game.
Awesome. And I mean, on the other side, it's interesting because, you talk about T1 and how it always felt so inevitable that they could win. And G2 was one of the teams that gave people hope. That it was like, hey, you actually can not only compete or have a good game against these dominant LCK teams, you can beat them. Yeah. You can take them down in best of series. And I think that is really what was so special about G2 coming onto the international scene and showing everyone that it could be done.
And I mean, if you want to like go back through the history books, back in 2017, it was also like Perks' redemption arc on G2, getting
G2
solo
vacation.
kills onto Vacaker.
Solo
kills onto
That's one heck of a Freudian slip. I don't even know how you fell into that.
It was such a dramatic change for G2 back in 2017. Even though T1 did end up winning, it was kind of like the beginning of so much change in Europe. So
Absolutely.
a lot of history, and right now T1 are on the precipice of finding themselves as the victor once again. Caps looking for a kill onto Faker. The bubble lands.
Bubble is going to go down as let's see whether Faker finds the right spot. He doesn't. He's going to flash into the flashes over the wall. Oh my God, that was... he just broke his ankles. Yeah.
Oh
and now
my
Caps
God.
he's stolen the flash, so he has it at the ready. Is now Faker. He can execute. And there is no way that it can be answered. That was so many...
This is the Reddit play. That's the Reddit play.
It's like the montage juke that you're like,
there's no way that would work.
I remember
There's no
seeing
way
that
that
like
would work.
6 years ago or something. It was like, well, that looks cool from that guy that was playing in Reddit.
It's the thing in solo queue where you're literally just like, I can out-juke them by staying in specific spots because you expect them to flash in a certain direction, then you flash in another one, and then Faker just did it.
That's incredible. I mean, the way he even set it up is so smart. Like, he hugs the top wall, showing, hey, I'm flashing over here, and then you flash back towards the pixel brush. And it looks silly. Like, from if we saw this from Caps' point of view, you would fully
we get to do that
understand,
now.
right? You know, Caps going here, and he's hugging that wall. He's going to hit him here. He's looking for the ignite.
He can't
so he
ignite
knows he's
him.
against
Yeah,
the wall.
exactly.
Exactly. And then he flashes. And from there, you're saying, of course he's flashing to his side. 100% he's flashing to his side.
And then he thinks that Faker's flashed and then E'd into the Baron pit. And you can't blame Caps for that. It's just, wow, great heads up from Faker because he should have died 1v1.
That's a knockback here from Zeus as both of... Oh, no, Broken Blade. Not quite level 6 just yet. A little bit of an opportunity here, but Jankos understanding that there was some danger, so Zeus not going to be able to commit.
And while it does look, you know, really, really kind of crazy, you see at the same time, Caps is way up in farm.
Yeah, I was going
right?
to say,
so
like,
even
yes,
though that
it
was
looked
cool,
really cool, it's still, like, not going very well.
Absolutely, and that's huge for Caps, right? So a big play from Faker, because when you're down a bunch of farm and then you get solo killed, the lane can absolutely just be over. So Faker, at the very least, able to avoid that. Does, of course, execute. But going to be back towards mid lane and trying to catch back up.
So I want to draw attention to what Faker is doing right now because we talked about the fact that Caps doesn't have TP, and Faker recognizes that in order to back or running Ignite, you have to be very specific in your base timing. So Faker set up a bit of a slow push here so that he could freeze the wave underneath his tower. And now he's hit level 6.
They don't know Carrier is here. Coming over. Oner not going to find the Sonic Wave. Is now Caps. Perfect execution from Faker is not going to be enough to lock down that kill. The Ignite comes down. Handshake onto Targamas, who's going down very low, very squishy now on this Karma. No longer on the Bromas. Flackett's moved on in as well. Feels like everyone's here. The heal comes out from Kumiyushi. Flackett going to get slowed down for now. Not quite enough of the feathers, and Flackett's going to have to flash. Gets himself out to safety. Still 0-0 on the kill score.
Yeah, but thankfully for T1, it does go well for them, forcing out some of these extra summoners here. The wave is slow pushing away from Caps, and he was not able to fix it. T1 had the extra member there, Carrier there first. So Jankos was coming to help him push it out, but then they see Oner there, and then Carrier's there, so you can't actually reset it. Faker goes for this all in, and just bases with the wave pushing towards him, which is going to even up the farm a lot. If we can get eyes on mid lane, there's going to be way more minions for him to farm. So after this gets pushed in, if he can pick up a lot of it, it should be much closer than it was.
It's this is something that you will see in pro play, but never in solo queue, where a mid lane and hang on.
Yeah, ulti comes down towards the bottom side of the map. Gumyushi in trouble, and he is going to burn down. I don't think he's going to get enough to get the kill there on that one, and that is going to be the kill secured from G2. That is going to be first blood, and it is Jankos that helps secure it.
Nicely done by Jankos, a quick level 6 there. Does get the kills, and Oner with a rare misplay. Safeguarding away and then flashing back in.
Yeah, it kind of broke my brain a little bit, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was worried that Carrier was going to go down. Now they're looking for a play here. The slow lands.
Yeah, we'll see whether the handshake is going to come in. It does, as Oner is going to be able to secure it. So 1-1 now. Immediately going to be evened up as T1 do fake out the back.
It's a great punish on the missing flash that they forced out in the jungle earlier there on, but Oner making good on his earlier mistake, makes up for it. We can watch this one more time as Jankos quick 6, he's going to go in.
And this is some of the early game impact that we wanted to see from Jankos, able to instantly use his ultimate, recognizing that the bot lane of T1 is just far too overextended. Carrier does invest the flash. Jankos thinks he can get that kill, realizes the safeguard is there to keep Carrier alive, has to disengage. So then Oner realizes, hang on, I can actually kill Jankos, chooses to flash back in. And Flackhead, he wants to fix this wave. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't have the assist distance needed. And I think it's debatable. Arguably, he should have just gone back here, but he believes the rest of T1 has reset, and he ends up getting punished for it.
Oh, Ornhorn comes down. Zeus going to flash to get himself out of the way. That is a great ulti from Carrier. A lot of damage now onto Targamas and to Caps as he's just keeping within melee ranges. Now Faker just gets the Q, doesn't pick the right spot to get the ulti over the wall, but the 5-point strike is going to be there. Targamas doesn't have his flash, exactly like you were saying. Carrier is going to lock down that kill, and T1 mop up a couple of extras in the river.
T1 are punishing these missing summoners so well, knowing they can continue chases because of those track summoners. They're going to be up towards Herald, but Flacket at the very least does get a play back on bot side, will deny some of these minions. Gumayusi though pushing in mid. T1 win the skirmish on top side. You can see they've littered that top side jungle with vision and will grab this. And when you have a losing lane and you lose Herald, it gets very difficult.
Oh, nah, there is going to be the knocker from Broken Blade. They're threatened, but Paranoia comes in. That is going to be immediately the kick out, as it's going to be Owner that locks down the Herald. But Jankos, can he get anything else done? The rest of the team are coming in. Caps just looking to lock down Carrier. Carrier is going to try and W himself, but it's not going to quite be enough as Broken Blade flashes over the wall. Jankos eventually does go down. Targum is also just going to be taken off the rift once again, as now Caps against the world. Zeus is trying to skip through everything, but it is not going to be him that takes the kill. It's in fact Owner that mops it up.
And T1 continue to take control over the early game. Look at how quickly the gold is ballooning in T1's favor as G2, they tried to contest the Herald. The thing is, they're strong when their ults are up, and they think, hey, maybe we can actually look to contest this. Maybe we have a smite advantage. He kicks him away from the fear as well. He's able to smite secure along with doing enough damage to secure the Herald, and then Carrier, while he does drop, look at how much he's invested. Broken Blade doesn't have the HP to fight this. Gumayusi is full HP. He's forced to disengage. Caps only level 7 to the level 9. Owner's gonna get, well, I don't think he does actually get level 8 here, but regardless, there's nothing that Caps can do, and G2, they thought they could force that play. They didn't have the help, and it feels like desperation is starting to come through for G2.
And I have to just give so much credit to the timing on that Lee Sin kick. He buffered it perfectly so that Nocturne would arrive and then is instantly kicked, and Flacket maybe seeing him die again bot side, no flash.
Yeah, Faker. Perfect execution is going to be available, and he throws it out to tidy up the kill very comfortably. Faker in a side lane now. His comfort zone absolutely here on this Akali.
I mean, they're just on fire, and Owner is looking so good. Guma has flash, but will not use it.
Knockup comes in. That's a fantastic disengage ult from Carrier, though. Finds a handshake just to stun up the solo lanes of G2 here. The Q is going to connect. Caps flash over the wall. That is going to keep him alive here, but T1, it feels like they've just come alive in the last few minutes.
I just love how T1 is actually pushing the pace of this game. They know that Nocturne wants to fight only around ultimate, so Owner saying, no, we're just going to fight constantly or I'm going to take your whole jungle.
Oh, that was so cute. The Bellows Breath is going to be out there, but
nice
no
buffer.
kick does come through. Exhaust comes down as Owner's just going to move his way out, and he can just do everything with Reckless Abandon, and there's no punishment.
And I think that you highlighted it there, Azale. T1 are just playing around that window very well. I think that it all started with that initial skirmish where they got that pick onto Caps. The thing about Akali is with Sork Boots and level 6, that's kind of where you're at a point where you can look to force these small skirmishes. And when you think about the matchup, sure, in lane, it's not great, but when you're able to pair up with your jungler and kind of go for these 2v2 situations, that is really where this Akali becomes very fluid and easy to execute in a composition like this. And we saw, even with the exhaust thrown down from Targamas, it didn't matter. He just sat in his shroud, he waited with his E, and then he's able to re-engage. So T1 picked the exact right window to force all of these skirmishes, and they've just been picking G2 apart, and then G2 tried to respond, and then T1 gets the better of them again, and there are just very open windows that T1 know they can force these plays, and they're able to balloon this gold lead out of control.
Yeah, and I mean, it's starting to feel like game one all over again. It's about 6.5K in the gold lead here, 13 minutes in for T1. Absolute domination here from the LCK #1 seed.
Yeah, 7,000 gold almost. The lead is much larger than what we saw. I was wondering which game one you were referring to, as Knockup does come down onto Gumayusi. Of course, their first of the tournament was a very large lead as well, which G2 were able to come out ahead of. And it was with things like the Ornn that now G2 have for themselves, as Caps was looking for Gumayusi. Good ignite to go down there, but doesn't find the paddle star. As Owner just going to wait until Targamas goes down, but it's not going to be enough. He does eventually get back in there. Q going to land as well, and now Zoe feeling like a sitting duck right now. Has to go back to that portal jump. Wishes he didn't, as now Blackett going to get dove on once again. Faker's got the second activation. position, but it's not going to quite be enough damage as he didn't want to get underneath that turret. Oh, not quite enough as the bullet time is just going to push Faker away.
Everything's just coming up T1. 8,000 gold lead. Make it even more. We'll see if they can get Faker.
Yeah, flashes to get himself out of the way of the ram, and I think he's still got a backflip or two available to him, so he'll be absolutely fine.
You can just feel the momentum slipping away from G2. There are so many things that are happening across the map where it's just not typical G2, right? Individually, they're making small misplays. Like, you can see Fleck had his ultimate while Faker was underneath his tower, and then he holds on to it. He waits to see how close Faker is, and then he throws it out and is not able to get this kill. Targamas, they don't have any control on this side of the map. He's trying to drop vision when his top lane is backing, and he ends up getting punished for it. And it's just T1 is riding the control. Look, they're pushing all 3 lanes on the map right now, and they are just not slowing down. They realize the position that they're in, and they're not giving G2 a second to breathe.
Well, Paranoia just to get over the wall.
Nice
Big
spell
knob,
shield.
but it's a great spell shield from Jankos, exactly as you say. Targamas now comes in, has the exhaust. It's now Flackett's here as well. 4 versus 1 as Zeus does now have it, and he keeps himself alive. Thanks, Carrier, for that one. And Carrier even grabs himself the kill as well. Zeus now with a grump. It's just going to eat that one up and be a little bit more healthy. Gumayusi now looks for it. Mini stun into the wall. Targamas is taken down. Gumayusi tidies up that kill also, and G2. Oh man, I mean, 4 versus 1, and still Carrier gets there in time.
It's just bullying at this point, isn't it? They can't even get the 1 kill. Carrier arriving in time for the bailout. Cap's gonna look here now, but Owner can easily block.
Yeah.
And it's just been the Owner show. 10 out of 11 KPs running everywhere.
Gumayusi is going to get taken down here, most likely. I mean, I've said that a few times. He does have flash, and so he is just going to try to create that distance. There's the hostile takeover from Carrier. He now wraps himself around. Caps is still looking to try and get that lockdown. A massive Nara into the wall. That's going to be Faker locking down the kill as everyone's turned up. Gumayushi's going to kill Caps. And gentlemen, I don't think that G2 have anything left in the tank for this game. T1 are just styling right now.
You can see the collapse happening for G2, and T1 is taking advantage of it. Pick after pick, play after play, T1 refuses to slow down with their aggression. They are constantly going for skirmishes. They are consistently outplaying G2, and they are looking to secure their revenge and make their way back to an MSI final.
Just looking incredible here. 13,000 gold lead, almost 1,000 per minute of League of Legends that we have played. They are getting ahead. They are running everywhere, just absolutely styling on G2, getting kills at will.
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about before, but this time it's the Owner show. Like 5-0-9 on the Lee Sin. He is 1 kill away from 100% kill contribution on this Lee Sin, and it feels like he's the carry this time around. Yes, Faker in side lanes has been fantastic, but this Lee Sin just everywhere so far, making everything happen, and this is what we saw from Owner in the LCK final for spring. This is why he was the finals MVP, and his Lee Sin is still just incredible here in this semi-final.
I mean, he has been amazing, and we've gotten to see many times over why Carrier was the spring MVP as well.
That's enough, and Zeus is just going to pop the Zoe. We'll see whether Jankos can answer this one as, yep, everyone's coming down to try and take him out this time, but the Ram's going to be there. That's 2 versus... It's 5 people down here. The rest of T1 are launching themselves towards these inhibitor turrets. Zeus takes 2 with him.
And they can push for the win potentially here. We'll see how far they want to go. At the very least, they will get this 1 inhibitor. They have Shelly. Will they play it safe? Will they play it controlled? It's 17-3. They're 14,000 gold ahead.
Yeah, bullet time going to be used just to tidy up the minion wave. They do manage to take down Shelly there with that one as well. Sorry, Shirley, I correct myself, as T1 will grab this inhibitor turret as well. G2 now just trying to protect it, and they will be able to do so. G2, just a slight amount of breathing room now.
It was G2 that held the record for the fastest best of 5 internationally ever, and T1 is now on the verge of getting a sub 20-minute win against G2, who held that record. An incredibly dominant performance from T1, and it felt like that coming into this game, G2 had a plan. They were able to get a few comfort picks, but play after play, pick after pick, T1 have just been outperforming, and we see Zeus doing this once again. We've been seeing it all year long, the promise, the potential of this young player, but he basically isolates into 2 1v1s. He's able to secure 1 kill, he secures a second, and while he loses his life, the benefits for T1 are more than worth it.
I mean, it's just heartbreaking to lose out in those types of situations. He had the early 2 items. Now even building towards potentially a wit's end third, just going full all in for the damage. They know they are so far ahead here. Faker working towards his second item. We already have 2 through for Gumayushi, 2.5 for Zeus, 2 for Owner. You look on the other side, it's 1 only, and sometimes not even 1 in the case of Broken Blade. They're just so far behind. It's almost unthinkable to try to conceive of how they could come back.
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult prospect. As Broken Blade thinking about this one, Gumayushi getting taken down below half right now. It's G2 just desperate to try and protect this. Faker in the mid lane, getting that split push happening. Of course, there will be super creeps there to knock down that door, but not going to find the Q just yet. G2 holding on for the moment. Their wave clear is pretty good. And of course, it's not like the Baron hasn't spawned. Still got 10 seconds. That's a flash in for the hostile takeover. The kick comes forward onto Caps, but they are trying to get themselves back. The Nara into the wall from Zeus. He throws the boulder through, and all 4 just get wiped from the rift. Flacked just left walking back to the fountain. The teleport to the mid lane, and in 20 minutes, T1 are looking to end this game.
T1 wipe G2 off the map, and Flackett is left alive to watch as his base crumbles. T1 3-0 will look to claim their revenge against G2.
And an incredibly swift best of 5 as well, as now Flackett's going to be taken down. Both of these Nexus turrets go down, and T1, much like RNG did in their semi-final, will get a 3-0 over the Western team. A few extra kills at the end, but there it is. T1 looking to try and claim their 3rd MSI title and deny the reigning MSI World Champions theirs.
For the
MSI champions, not world champions, I'm sorry.
For the first time in 5 long years, T1 will return to the international final stage here, and they left no doubt about it. One of the most dominant best of 5s I have seen in a long, long time. T1 were relentless. They were aggressive. They played with momentum. They got advantages. They expanded those advantages. And this team looks like one that is worthy of facing off against RNG, that is playing on such a high level. Gumayushi and Keria came alive today, and all of T1 truly showing why they are all world class in their own right.
A terrifying team, for sure, and it's only setting up for the spectacle that will be RNG versus T1. We know that both are incredible teams, and a well-deserved victory. I don't think at any point it was really ever in doubt. I felt like that while some games were closer than others, T1 was just outclassing G2 in every way, shape, or form. And huge props to them. They will continue on to the finals, and G2, I think they can be proud of their split. Expectations were low. Expectations were that they would not win Spring. They did finish 4th at the end of the regular season, and I'm sure that many of these players will feel frustrated. But I think that from G2's perspective, this is still a learning team. This is still a progress. This is an investment. Flackett for his first tournament had strengths, had weaknesses, and he's going to have a lot to learn from. But I know that G2 is going to look back on this, and they're going to be hungry the same way that T1 was. And I'm imagining that we're going to have an even more exciting rivalry the next time these two meet internationally.
No, I agree. And you could hear there from the Busan crowd as well, a big round of applause for G2 as they took a bow. This is a team that has pushed T1 many, many times. And it's only now, after so many years of reiteration for this T1 squad, the entirety of last year, not a lot of changes were made moving into 2022, except for solidifying what they now knew they needed in order to succeed. So I think T1 have been working towards this particular rematch for a really long time, and we'll see how far they can take it, because RNG, their success was in more of the Dam1 era of the LCK, and now T1 is back to try and reaffirm their position at the top.
I mean, the finals, man, is going to be so incredibly hyped. There's absolutely no doubt that it is by far the 2 best teams that are going to be facing off. T1, RNG, both looking very dominant. It was 1-1 between those 2 teams in the group stage.
Yeah.
This is that clash that people have been looking towards for so long now. And tomorrow we're going to have that best of 5.
I got something for you, Azel. If T1 wins in the final, EG has the best record against them at MSI.
That's second place in my books. That's a dub.
Yep, we take those. We take those.
those.
We're going to take a short break, but when we're back, we'll take a look at tomorrow's finals, and Yinsu checks in with the players in Busan. Don't go anywhere.
Behind 14 epic days of epicness. Behind 61 million hours of dropped jaws. Behind every match, every broadcast, every moment at League of Legends MSI 2022 is the network capable of making it all happen. The Cisco Network, aka The Realm. Cisco, powering the future of esports.
I'm here to show and to tell. I was born to amaze.
You won't forget the moments we share will lift your spirits and breathe life into your day. This is a city born to be with you. Busan.
언제든지 내 모습 매직 단 한 번에 내가 잡아 절대 기죽지 않지 평평 네가 뭘 알아 견딜 수 없어 원해도 원하는 게 얼굴에 보여 I'm trouble and you running it I'm so cold when I move that way you gon' be so blown I'm the realest in the game said I'm on fire with the blade you're about to hear my name ringing in your head like whoa so keep your eyes on me now
Welcome, everyone, to MSI Cooldown. After the East dismantles the West in a clean 6-0 fashion here at the MSI semifinals. T1 even picking up the pace from yesterday to today with dominant game after dominant game. This third and final one just takes it to another level.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the big thing was we were looking at this draft backstage and we were like, okay, this is actually like not a bad draft for G2, right? Like they have a lot of options. It's kind of what they want. There were some risky picks from T1. Didn't end up panning out.
That summary execution is what Game 3 felt like. It's like, oh, we've time to put them out of their misery. We've dragged this on long enough, and boom, there they go. And I think the icing on the cake for me was, you see the karma come out, and I've said this a few times over the course of this tournament, but like EU players, not great karmas. They always complain when they go to Korea and they have to play against karmas. Said it in the green room.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe Targamas is going to be different, but obviously they lost out in that individual laning matchup, and ultimately a lot of those little things just snowballed into a lot bigger things, ending in a lot of plays like what you see now, where it's T1 are so ludicrously far ahead that even like a maybe somewhat questionable play just turns instantly into a good play.
But it just felt like G2 couldn't get a grip in this game at all, even from the get-go, right? We see a couple of these fights where you almost get these kills, almost get these plays, but T1 managed to get out with a scrape of HP, and then suddenly they're building this massive gold lead and able to run away with it.
The classic 1v5 for getting kills here. Love to see it.
The thing I want to point out is at the beginning of the day, we started talking about how like, oh, Faker, he's played more of a facilitating role, he's going to side lanes, and I feel like he took that personally. You know, we had
facilitating with kills.
Yeah, we had 3 phenomenal carry games from him, and that makes T1 even more dangerous, right? Because it's yet another facet. Previously, I never thought it was because Faker can't play carries. It was because I felt the team needed him to in order to succeed. Now that they don't, that adds a whole level to this T1.
Yeah, the only thing Faker facilitated today was flights home for G2. And I have to, like, because I called it out, right? Like, I believed in G2, even if the odds were stacked against them. But, like, T1 were clearly by far the better team. And even if that was expected coming to today, the level of dominance that they showed was stunning, honestly. It was wild to watch how incredibly one-sided the vast majority of these games and drafts really were.
Without a doubt. We're already singing his praises, but we're going to give one extra special shout-out to Faker for his juke early on in the game. Very much the solo queue play, as we called out, right? Like, this is the kind of thing that you do to look cool and just so that you can show the clip to your friends. The man pulls it out in a semi-final international stage against Cap. So I wanted to take an opportunity to actually watch it from Caps' perspective so that everybody can kind of understand, you know, what he had to deal with in the moment before we refresh our memories on what it looked like from the spectator's point of view.
Yeah, Faker here breaking hearts and breaking ankles, like absolutely destroys Caps in this. And like you can kind of understand it, right? Because Caps is like, oh, of course it's flash over the wall. He's probably just hiding in the bush. And it's too late by the time Caps realizes, oh God, I've been completely juked here.
It was, oh man, it hurt. It hurt because like a flashback. So I was lucky enough to cast the T1 series at Worlds that they were able to win in, and it was. I remember the call. I parroted the Doa call. Faker, what was that? In the context where Faker absolutely threw a game away, and I was like, oh, I'm so cool and I'm so clever. And now I feel like I'm getting payback, and G2's getting payback for all those series and all those moments, because this looks even more dominant in a lot of these games than G2 was in 2019. And I think that's like the sweetest revenge for T1 and T1's fans, is that they have so clearly, so decisively eliminated G2 from the tournament.
And honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way, as Faker makes it back to another international final. As Azale had said on the cast, last time was 2017 in an international final. Plenty of semifinals appearance, and obviously the guy has been consistent to a degree on the international stage in solidifying his kind of legacy as the GOAT of League of Legends. But to be one of the main determining factors across all 3 games in qualifying to that best of 5 tomorrow against RNG, again, you wouldn't want it any other way.
And as the LPL representative, I'm terrified. I thought we had this.
I mean,
pegged,
at least
you know?
Xiaohu's no slouch.
Yeah, but I thought we had this pegged, right? It's like, all right, you know, Xiaohu's going to be the facilitator, Faker be the facilitator, and now Faker is showing this completely new side that we've got to worry about. That's not fair. This was not supposed to be me coming to the semifinals, and suddenly we got more things we got to worry about with T1.
At least you got a warning, Dagda. At least RNG have earned themselves a warning, because EU, we thought the same thing. You saw that draft one, suddenly there's a Tristana, and our entire game plan goes out the window from an EU perspective.
And that's the thing is, like, Xiaohu loves to go for the same kind of things we saw from G2, right? Like the blind pick Gallios, these kind of things. And now we got to, all right, well, Faker's popping off in Tristanis. He's bringing out Akali's. He's no longer like, oh, I'm going to play for side lanes. I'm just going to pop off myself and carry these games on my back.
All right, well, you already have an idea of where we're going to be looking tomorrow when those two teams take to the stage, the mid lane. But while Faker performed across all 3 games in this series, did also want to call out our OP player of the game in this game number 3, Owner on the Lee Sin.
And yeah, I brought this up. Owner is a phenomenal Lee Sin. It's great to see him bringing it out through the latter half of Rumble stage and into this best of 5. Another thing about Owner, you know, he was their finals MVP after being the only one, I believe, on their team that didn't make the All-Pro team. So it was just, he's evolved so much since we saw him last year, right? He stepped in kind of a really, what could have been an awkward situation, performed insanely well throughout their Worlds run, and then has only improved. Like, if I had to give a most improved player, it would definitely be the Owner. I've really loved watching his growth.
Certainly, and I think I've watched him for most of this tournament play a lot around top side, and you can see in the kill and death maps, that's where T1 were putting a lot of their attention. But even in this series, G2 wanted to play bot, Owner was ready to fight fire with fire, wanted to make a counterplay on the opposite side. It just feels like he was doing absolutely everything that he needed to do to respond to Jankos, to respond to any strategy G2 were bringing to the table. And that, to me, the fact that he's continuing to develop and still looks so dominant in the midst of all of that is incredible to watch.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just want to go home and play Lee Sin after watching that. Every single time I see this guy, like the kicks are insane, the mechanics are on point, especially the fact that you're able to do that on an international stage against some of the best players in the world, I think speaks volumes to this guy. And I think, as you say, it's incredible to see kind of his growth over the course of time as he starts to, you know, become a mainstay player that a lot of people are going to be watching for at international tournaments on behalf of the LCK.
That's funny. You want to go try it? I'm satisfied with just dreaming about it. Okay?
It's easier if I pretend, because if I actually try, I have to accept it.
Exactly.
If I just tell people I can do it and never test it,
quickly I will fall back down to earth. What a display, in all honesty, from T1. But by the same token, we also have to say goodbye to G2 as they fall here against T1. Yinsu is actually standing by in a Verizon post-game interview with Caps.
Thank you very much, Dash. I'm joined by Caps from G2 here. Hi, Caps. Welcome back to the show. Unfortunately, you guys weren't able to overcome T1 the way that you have in the past. What do you think feel like were the things that went wrong for you today?
I think a lot of things went wrong today. I guess just coming right out the gate, they had very strong early games, and they kind of snowballed 2 of the 3 games, like completely out of control. The third one was a bit closer, but I died when we were going to Nash, and then they kind of took over the game from there. So I think a lot of things were going wrong, and hopefully if we meet them again, we'll look to fix those.
But it wasn't all bad, especially in this tournament. You know, it's been a joy to watch you pop off. You had that win streak. The fans have been really loving it as well. So what would you say are some of the positives that you'd be taking away from this MSI?
I think the first half of the group was going really very well for us, and we managed to take a game off T1 and RNG in groups. And unfortunately, I guess didn't manage to do it in the BO5, and we won't face RNG. But we took a game of them in the first half, and I think if we, managed to take away a lot of the things from playing against these really insane teams on stage and scrimming against them a bunch, going in for summer, I'm hoping that we can show up even better than we've done in the past.
Lastly, of course, you guys came into this tournament with a couple of rookies as well. How proud are you of their performance and the fact that they were able to help you guys go this far here?
I'm really happy. I think they already proved themselves in Europe, right? And even if the games didn't go our way, I feel like the ones that did, they showed up really big time. And even some of the games today, I think they were doing a lot of really good stuff. So I'm super happy with how, all our new team members, even some of the, even BB, right, coming in as well. And I'm hoping that we can continue to improve as a team, because then for summer and hopefully Worlds will be really good.
Thank you very much, Caps. It's been a pleasure to watch you guys here, and we'll see you back in Europe for summer.
Thank you.
You guys have heard Caps' thoughts here. I want to pass this back to the analyst desk and see what they have to say.
Thank you so much, Yinsu. Obviously, a stinging moment for Caps and the rest of G2. But again, I think it's important to remember both the run that they had to go on to get to this tournament, the way that they started this tournament, the way that in a number of senses they defined the early meta at this tournament and really challenged everybody else to kind of, match them and then surpass them in order to get to this point. And still, a semifinal finish, something to be proud of.
Yeah, and I think that's why when we saw them initially, like being able to start off on such a success, I think that's why a lot of European fans felt that they could actually rally behind this team, right? Like we saw them bring out the Zoe and Thiari match. We saw a bunch of this kind of early draft going their way. And I think it was hard to deny at that stage that they were the best team at MSI. I think that's the most heartbreaking thing, is seeing that they weren't able to continue that streak forward, especially when you look at the caliber of players and the ability for Jankos and Caps to kind of find that and define that success in the early game for G2, to have been unable to at least scratch the surface of that here just feels like we haven't really got to see what G2 were possible of creating.
And again, big shout out to Caps for taking the time and giving us a losers interview. He can refuse, G2 can just refuse, and we're always, of course, going to respect that because it is such a crushing position to be put in. But he came out there and he said what he had to say, and he talked about the tournament as best he could. And I think the fact that he has been such a rock for this team and pretty much every roster he's been on since joining the league with Fnatic is just incredible to watch him through the years remain in that position.
And a rock for the Western League audience. Again, I know a player of his caliber and very much just of knowing Caps individually that he's not going to be satisfied in any tournament unless he's the one hoisting the trophy. But this man has never missed a knockout stage, a bracket stage at any international tournament that he has attended. He continues that streak. That's a difficult thing to put up for any player. Let alone somebody who's probably still in the early parts of his career.
And it's good that you say attended because he qualified for international competition with the TCL and just wasn't able to attend because he was too young. This man has made for an international stage from what feels like the first day of his career. And it's, again, the thing that impresses me the most about this jungle mid duo especially is how consistently they get back to the top. They're not always number one. 2021 was a good year. Jankos wasn't always the best jungler. You had years where Trick was better, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that they're always coming back to the top, that they're always competitive at an international level is what makes them such easy players to be excited about, to really rally behind and be a fan of.
Now, for those of you who are at home hoping to get a word from the victorious team in T1, have no fear. We will get a word from Faker, but that will be played on tomorrow's show ahead of the finals. Obviously, there's a big line of people that want to talk to Faker after that best of 5 performance, and so we will get our shot, and we'll make sure that you hear from him tomorrow on the show. I also know that a number of you are wondering, hey, Dash, it's been a little while since you've talked to us about Riff Reaction, that Spotify exclusive podcast hosted by Travis Gafford and Emily Rand. And guess what? Well, it's out on Tuesday, but they do want to hear from you. Who do you think wins MSI? This is the final question left to be answered. So make sure you submit your vote now in the Riff Reactions podcast on Spotify. From there, I think we've got nothing left to do but to pull up the bracket and begin to have that same discussion ourselves here on Cool Down. RNG did win the coin flip and has elected blue side, so we already have that information going into tomorrow's best of 5. But 2 absolute titans who swept their way to the grand final, one of which is defending their MSI title, were poised for something great.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what RNG can bring to the table, and I'm delighted that they kind of get blue side as well, because it feels like red side, you've got a band like Wukong, Ariel, these kind of things, so having that flexibility there is going to be a big one for RNG, and especially when you see what T1 can bring to the table today, you have to be ready for that pick and ban.
It's also interesting just because both teams in their 3-0s started on blue side and then had to win twice from red side. But therefore, again, it's like, ooh, so still a lot of value being placed on that blue side, but clearly capable of winning on either.
And then for the T1 side, like RNG has to be looking at today's game being like, wait a minute, like you said, like, they kind of really changed.
It's a bit hot under the collar.
Like,
more questions than answers after that one.
In the draft, they were like, okay, you know what? Faker is going to be a primary carry. And that is something that I think plays really well into the way that RNG like to play, right? Like we even saw them almost lose a game to Saigon Buffalo because of the way they targeted mid in that game with their mid jungle. So that is a really interesting facet coming out of T1 that I can't wait to see match up against RNG, because once again, T1 have had highs and lows throughout this event, but RNG have just been kind of,
cruising,
steadily cruising along. Yeah.
And I think as much as I would love to tell you that both of these teams were challenged in their semifinal best of 5 and we saw everything that they have, I can't in all honesty say that. And so I'm really curious to see the two things I really want to track are Bin and Wei. They're players with incredibly high highs and some pretty low lows, and they've been really solid so far. Can they keep that up against T1? And T1, they didn't even really resist the urge to fight at weird times today. They were just so far ahead in the early game that it did not matter. But that is the big thing for me, because while all players are firing all cylinders, do we get back to some of the earlier weaknesses we saw from both of these lineups?
I asked the question at the very top of the day with you two on the desk. Is RNG the team to beat? Are they the ones considered the favorites, regardless of what takes place in today's best of 5? I kind of want to pose the question to you again, because I come away watching this T1 dominance, and I am concerned that kind of the main factors, those main criticisms that we had for that team, were completely shored up today.
So, speaking with full LPL bias.
Good to clarify.
Thank you for the preface.
There you go. Thank you.
I still think that RNG are probably the team to beat. I think T1, a lot of the issues that I kind of saw today was unfortunately just, Kerry and Gumayushi having full control of the bot lane, which I think is a much harder thing to do against Gala and Ming, and also just the champions that they're able to bring to the table is going to make that a much more difficult task. So I don't think you're going to be able to get as much as an early lead as T1 in that game, and that's where I think it starts to get a little bit spicy, and that's where I think RNG can bring it back in the mid game.
Also, from my perspective, whenever a team wins in such a dominant fashion, especially a team like T1 who are super dominant in the early game, it's just easier to rally behind them. RNG aren't the kings of the early game domestically, and they're better than most of the teams at this tournament. They probably won't be better than T1 in the early game, but if they win, it's not going to be like snowball 10K gold lead at 15 minutes. It's going to be slower, it's going to be more controlled, it's going to be more about the macro game. It's just not as flashy of a brand of League of Legends as what T1 play. So I think that you kind of have to take that into account when you think about both these teams. T1 are probably going to get leads in most of the games we see early game. Are those leads going to matter is the question that's on my mind.
All right, I'm going to jump in there because we have a whole hour tomorrow to get through the countdown to talk about this matchup. And so we're going to hit on everything. It kicks off at 9 a.m. CE. ST, and with a special. Did you see that happen?
You've got this.
Every time, man. Did you see that happen yesterday?
No,
I screwed it up yesterday.
Berlin time, and then Europe time.
I just shouldn't have said it. I just should have said it's an hour earlier. That's what I should have said. Okay, well, make sure you tune in for the countdown where we're going to break down all things RNG T1. It's one best of 5. It's one single day of play until we crown the best team in the world, and we'll catch you there. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and be good to each other.
3-time champion incoming.
Oh.
Yeah, we didn't even get to that. What did these